If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon. Link is in the description. Additionally, if you would like to request novels and access my Google Drive where I have 200 plus audiobooks, then you can join my Patreon. Link is also provided in the description.
Chapter 81, The Airborne Beast as Large as a Tailed Beast, Daytime Tiger. Hiruzen Sarutobi's face was filled with rage. As the Hokage of Konoha village, to have his door kicked in and be told to ascend to the heavens no matter how calm he usually was, this was infuriating. Uchiha Akira, do you even know what you're saying? The third Hokage, who had always presented a kind and smiling demeanor to the public, now wore a face as dark as a stormy night. People, once they get old, should learn to step aside and give opportunities to the younger generation. Otherwise, if they cling to power until their death, they just become resented, Uchiha Akira shot back, his words laced with unrestrained criticism. These harsh words only deepened the scowl on Hiruzen Sarutobi's face. Without further words, he formed a hand seal. Seeing Hiruzen prepare to attack, Uchiha Akira wasted no time, his chakra boiling to life. Gate of opening, gate of healing, gate of life, gate of pain, gate of limit, gate of view, gate of wonder. In one breath, Uchiha Akira opened the seventh gate. Blue steam began to rise from his body. The so-called strongest Hokage? The professor of ninjutsu? In Uchiha Akira's eyes, Hiruzen Sarutobi was nothing more than a self-glorifying hypocrite. Killing him should be no different from killing Danzo, the seventh gate should suffice, no need to open the eighth. 7 gates, again. By now, Hiruzen Sarutobi had finished his preparations, holding the Nyoa staff, transformed by Inma, in his hand. When he looked up to see Uchiha Akira enveloped in blue steam, he cursed inwardly. The 8 gates are a forbidden technique that harms the user before harming others. Unless absolutely necessary, the 8 gates should not be used, especially the later gates. But Uchiha Akira? He opens the 7th gate without even starting the fight? It's like playing poker and throwing down all your aces at the start. The trump card meant to turn the tide was being used as a regular move? Regardless of Hiruzen Sarutobi's internal complaints, Uchiha Akira, now with the 7th gate open, charged forward with lightning speed. Taking a deep breath, Hiruzen Sarutobi, though older now, was still 5 or 6 years younger than in the original timeline. Gripping the Nyoa staff, he met Uchiha Akira head-on. Despite Uchiha Akira's powerful taijutsu after opening the 7th gate, Hiruzen Sarutobi was still a top-tier cage-level fighter. He had always kept Danzo in check. Hiruzen's raw power was indeed much stronger than Danzo's. Additionally, the Nyoa staff provided a significant advantage in close combat. The staff could extend and retract at will, and in critical moments, Inma's arms could emerge from the staff to assist in attacks, making it a formidable weapon in hand-to-hand combat. For a while, despite Uchiha Akira's dominance in taijutsu, he couldn't quickly end the battle with Hiruzen Sarutobi. Sigh, if Might Guy opened the 7th gate, he could easily crush the 3rd Hokage, right? After all, Guy, in his 7th gate state, could still trade blows with Madara in his 6 paths form. But I'm struggling just to take down the 3rd Hokage. Though Uchiha Akira held the advantage, the ever-changing Nyoa staff frustrated him, and he sighed inwardly. But upon reflection, Uchiha Akira understood. While his current battle was centered on taijutsu, he was not truly a taijutsu specialist. More precisely, the Uchiha clan excelled in using the Sharingan, with ninjutsu and genjutsu being their strengths, not taijutsu. In contrast, Might Guy, apart from summoning techniques, was entirely focused on taijutsu, just like Rock Lee. So, it made sense that even in the 7th gate state, his taijutsu was not on par with Guy's. Nyoa staff, extend. After being pressed for a while, Hiruzen Sarutobi finally seized an opportunity. The Nyoa staff, now aimed at Uchiha Akira, suddenly extended with incredible speed. Uchiha Akira crossed his arms in front of his chest, lowering his stance in a defensive position. The thick Nyoa staff slammed into Uchiha Akira's arms, forcing him to skid back 7 or 8 meters, carving a long trench in the ground with his feet. What power! To be pushed back 7 or 8 meters by the Nyoa staff. Uchiha Akira marveled at the force behind the blow. While the title strongest Hokage might have been exaggerated, Hiruzen Sarutobi's strength was on par with Oniki and the Raikage, ranking him among the top cage-level fighters. What? How is this possible? Though Uchiha Akira was inwardly impressed by Hiruzen Sarutobi's strength, which exceeded his expectations, he didn't realize that Hiruzen himself was in utter disbelief. He even wondered if he had grown weak with age. A few years ago, during the night of the Nine Tails attack, he had used this very same Nyoa staff to push the Nine Tails out of the village. But now, using the same move on Uchiha Akira, he couldn't even push him out of his own yard? Could it be that 7-year-old Uchiha Akira was physically stronger than the most powerful tailed beast, the Nine Tails? As Uchiha Akira was pushed back by the Nyoa staff, it sprouted 2 thick monkey arms that grabbed his wrists tightly. Hiruzen, run! This little monster is stronger than a tailed beast, you're no match for him. At the same time, Inma's eyes and mouth appeared on the staff, urgently shouting to Hiruzen Sarutobi. This. Hiruzen hesitated. As the Hokage of Konoha village, if he were to flee with his tail between his legs, wouldn't his lifelong reputation be ruined? Though the righteous image he had maintained over the years was a tool for gaining public support, he was reluctant to see it collapse now. Do you think Amir Inma can hold me? Despite Inma's arms gripping his wrists tightly, Uchiha Akira sneered and struggled. Run, run now! Inma's voice twisted with strain, as it used all its strength to hold onto Uchiha Akira. But it only managed to hold him for 2 seconds before Uchiha Akira broke free from Inma's grasp. After breaking free, Uchiha Akira twisted his waist, his leg whipping out like a lash toward the Nyoa staff. Leaf Great Whirlwind! But just as his kick was about to land, the Nyoa staff rapidly retracted, causing Uchiha Akira's kick to hit nothing but air. Indeed, the Nyoa staff, with its ability to change length at will, was a troublesome weapon in close combat. Uchiha Akira sighed inwardly. Though the attack missed, he wasn't too concerned. He quickly formed a hand gesture, resembling a seal. What kind of seal is that? Hiruzen Sarutobi's heart skipped a beat as he watched Uchiha Akira's hand movements. Any ninja would recognize the seals needed for ninjutsu, but Uchiha Akira's gesture wasn't a typical ninjutsu seal. So what was it? Air. Massive, powerful air began to gather and compress in Uchiha Akira's hands. This wasn't chakra, just pure, highly compressed air. Run, Hiruzen, run! Even though it was just air, the sheer volume and density made it terrifying. Inma urgently shouted at the third Hokage. In truth, Hiruzen Sarutobi didn't need the warning. He could already feel the ominous, heart-pounding pressure from the air compressed in Uchiha Akira's hands. All thoughts of pride and reputation forgotten, Hiruzen Sarutobi swiftly retreated. Trying to run? Think you can get away? Seeing Hiruzen Sarutobi turn to flee, Uchiha Akira smirked coldly. Then, he unleashed the highly compressed air from his hands. The air twisted and exploded, forming the shape of a massive tiger. The enormous tiger, as large as a tailed beast, roared toward Hiruzen Sarutobi. Daytime Tiger. In the original story, Might Guy in his 7th gate form could topple even Madara's colossal Susanoo with this technique. The air-formed tiger was so massive that it could stand toe-to-toe with Madara's Susanoo. What is that? In the quiet night, the sudden appearance of a gigantic daytime tiger was a shocking sight. Countless people in Konoha village looked up at the beast, their faces filled with awe and disbelief. Chapter 82, Using Kota Amatsukami against me? Daytime Tiger. This is an advanced taijutsu technique that can only be used when the 7th gate is opened. Indeed, despite its wide attack range and the enormous size of the tiger, it is not a ninjutsu but a taijutsu technique. In the original series, Might Guy used this technique only 3 times. The first time, he used it to defeat the so-called tailless tailed beast, Kisame Hoshigaki, who wielded same hata. The second time was during the 4th Great Ninja War, when he crashed into Uchiha Madara's Susanoo. The third time, however, it was blocked and shattered by the Sage of the 6 Paths Madara's staff. So, out of its 3 appearances, the Daytime Tiger had excellent results in the first 2 instances, except when it faced the Sage of the 6 Paths Madara. Now, as this colossal Daytime Tiger is unleashed, its destructive power is yet to be seen, but its sheer size alone has shaken the entire Konoha village. What on earth is happening here with such a massive disturbance? This disturbance? Is it coming from the Sarutobi clan's territory? Has Akira's assassination plan already started? In the Uchiha district, despite the distance, Uchiha Fugaku could still feel the impact of the Daytime Tiger. He knew that the battle on Akira's side must have already begun and was likely in a critical phase. This disturbance? Could it be? The reason you were stalling for time is because of this. Itachi, too, noticed the commotion from afar and quickly connected it to the Uchiha strategy of stalling for time. Is that Daytime tiger. Might Guy also noticed the disturbance and, upon seeing the massive tiger, showed a look of astonishment on his face. Of course, Might Guy recognized the daytime tiger. It's a technique that requires opening the seventh gate to use. However, although he had recently managed to open the seventh gate, he had not yet fully mastered the daytime tiger technique, and yet someone else could already use it. Could it be Uchiha Akira? Looking at the enormous daytime tiger, Might Guy immediately thought of Uchiha Akira. After all, apart from himself, it seemed that only Uchiha Akira in the entire ninja world could open the seventh gate, right? But logically, since he opened the seventh gate just a few days ago, he shouldn't be able to fight again so soon. Why is he even using the daytime tiger this time? Moreover, even though he taught Akira the 8 gates, he didn't teach him the accompanying taijutsu techniques. So how could Akira use the daytime tiger? With so many questions swirling in his mind, Might Guy quickly rushed toward the source of the commotion. It wasn't just Might Guy, many others noticed the disturbance and began rushing toward the scene as well. Kakashi, you're up too. On his way, Might Guy encountered Kakashi and greeted him. Guy, don't you feel that something is off tonight? Kakashi asked. Of course. With such a big commotion in the village, something must have happened. Might Guy rolled his eyes at Kakashi in exasperation. No, what I mean is, have you noticed that despite all this noise, the Konoha police force hasn't shown up, nor has the Anbu? Kakashi shook his head and replied. Hearing Kakashi's words, Might Guy finally looked around more carefully. Indeed, not only had the Konoha police force not shown up, but even the Anbu were nowhere to be seen. What's going on? What's happened to the police force and the Anbu? It wasn't just Kakashi who noticed this. As the daytime tiger caused such a massive disturbance, others began to realize that something was amiss as well. But for now, they all needed to get to the scene of the battle to see what was going on. One after another, the ninjas quickly arrived at the battlefield. And then, one by one, they were shocked to discover that the battle was happening within the Sarutobi clan's territory. It must be remembered that the third Hokage is the leader of the Sarutobi clan. Who would dare to cause such a ruckus in the middle of the night on Sarutobi territory? While the daytime tiger had shaken the entire village, Uchiha Akira was breathing heavily. Opening the seventh gate was a significant burden on him. After fighting for so long, Uchiha Akira was physically and mentally exhausted. Then he looked at the third Hokage. A massive crater had formed on the ground, and the Nyoa staff had reverted to its original form as Inma, lying unconscious from severe injuries. As for the third Hokage, he too was badly injured, lying in the center of the crater with his head bleeding, struggling to stand but unable to get up. Just now, when faced with the daytime tiger, the Nyoa staff had thickened and shortened, acting as a shield in front of the third Hokage. But Inma's strength wasn't enough to fully block the daytime tiger's attack. As a result, Inma had fallen into a coma from his injuries. And the third Hokage was in no better shape, lying on the ground, heavily wounded and seemingly unable to continue fighting. Strike while the iron is hot. The daytime tiger had caused such a huge commotion, and Uchiha Akira knew that if he delayed any longer, more and more people would arrive. Since the third Hokage could barely stand, it was time to finish him off. Without further ado, Uchiha Akira raised his hand again and delivered a punch toward the third Hokage. There was no need to use any ninjutsu. In the seventh gate state, a casual punch from him had the power of an A-rank ninjutsu. There was no need for any flashy techniques. However, just as Uchiha Akira's fist was about to strike the third Hokage, he suddenly felt a sense of impending danger. This sudden sensation made Uchiha Akira's hair stand on end. Almost reflexively, he changed the direction of his punch, aiming away from the third Hokage. A sharp pain shot through his fist. This was from a highly compressed wind release technique, known for its sharpness. This highly compressed wind blade had cut into his fist, but thanks to the powerful chakra surrounding his fist, it only caused a minor injury. Otherwise, even the strongest steel would have been sliced open by this wind release technique. After blocking the wind release attack with his punch, Uchiha Akira looked at his fist. The injury was superficial, like a small cut from a knife. He then turned toward the source of the attack. Seeing the figure that had just attacked him, Uchiha Akira's face showed a look of shock. Danzo! Uchiha Akira exclaimed in disbelief as he recognized the figure. Indeed, the person who had just ambushed him was none other than Shimura Danzo, whom he had killed just a few days ago. Yet here he was, standing perfectly fine in front of him. Damn Uchiha! Are you so surprised to see me alive? Did you really think you could kill me so easily? Danzo sneered, noticing Uchiha Akira's shocked expression. Izanagi. Uchiha Akira muttered as he scrutinized Danzo. There was no doubt that he had killed Danzo just a few days ago. In Uchiha Akira's mind, there were only 3 possible ways for someone to come back to life. One was the Rinnegan's outer path samsara of heavenly life technique, but Nagato would never use that technique on Danzo. The second was the forbidden technique of Cho from Tsunagakuer, reanimation jutsu, but Cho wouldn't sacrifice her life to revive Danzo. So, the most likely option was Izanagi. Uchiha Akira wondered if the Sharingan Danzo had sacrificed to use Izanagi was the one he had stolen from Shisui. Seeing Uchiha Akira immediately identify the method of his resurrection, Danzo, who had planned to make a grand reveal, felt a bit embarrassed. He hadn't expected Uchiha Akira to figure out his secret so quickly. No matter. From Danzo's expression, Uchiha Akira could tell that he had guessed correctly. Although Danzo's resurrection was unexpected, it wasn't a big problem. With his power, even in the 7th gate state, killing Danzo wouldn't be difficult. If he could kill him once, he could kill him a second time, a third time, a fourth time. Taking a deep breath, Uchiha Akira raised his fist again. With the 3rd Hokage already out of commission, a quick battle to finish off Danzo shouldn't be too hard. However, just as Uchiha Akira raised his fist and prepared to strike again, Danzo calmly unwrapped the bandages covering his right eye. He revealed a Mangeki Sharingan with a 4-point shuriken pattern in his right eye socket. This time, I didn't come back unprepared. I've successfully transplanted Uchiha Shisui's Mangeki Sharingan. Uchiha Akira, do you know about Shisui's Koda Amatsukami, the most powerful genjutsu? Danzo said confidently, as if victory was within his grasp. As he spoke, the Mangeki Sharingan in Danzo's right eye began to rotate. Seeing Danzo's Mangeki, Uchiha Akira immediately understood that Danzo hadn't used Shisui's eye for Izanagi, instead, he intended to use Koda Amatsukami against him. Just as Danzo's Mangeki Sharingan began to activate its genjutsu, Uchiha Akira's expression remained calm. With a thought, there was a sudden puff of smoke, and a pitch-black crow appeared, perched on Uchiha Akira's shoulder. This crow's eye socket also contained a Mangeki Sharingan, with the same 4-point shuriken pattern as Danzo's. P/S, if you are interested, you can read up to chapter 123 at patreon.com/mek01. Chapter 83, The Life-Risking Forbidden Jutsu, Reaper Death Seal. Shimura Danzo hadn't been resting that night. He was stationed at the route, having dispatched all the route ninja along with the ANBU to wipe out the Uchiha. Naturally, resting was out of the question. Therefore, when he sensed the commotion caused by the daytime tiger, Danzo rushed over immediately, arriving just in time to save the 3rd Hokage and temporarily preserve his life. The 8 gates, with the 7th gate opened again? Having previously lost his life to this technique, Danzo couldn't help but curse inwardly as he watched Uchiha Akira activate the 7th gate once more. He couldn't understand how Akira could be moving so soon after his last use of the technique. However, Danzo's time in hiding hadn't been without its gains. Successfully transplanting Shisui's Mangeki Sharingan and possessing the ultimate ace, Koda Amatsukami, Danzo felt confident even when facing the 7th gate opened Uchiha Akira. Uchiha Akira? The greatest genius in the history of the Uchiha clan? Opened the 3-tomo Sharingan at the age of 7? Very well, thought Danzo. If I can control him with Koda Amatsukami, such a powerful individual would become my most valuable asset. Thus, despite knowing he wasn't a match for Uchiha Akira, Danzo confidently removed the bandages covering his face, revealing the transplanted Mangeki Sharingan in his right eye. But just as he prepared to activate Koda Amatsukami, he was shocked to see Uchiha Akira summon a pitch-black crow. The crow perched on Akira's shoulder, and in its eye socket was a Mangeki Sharingan with a 4-point shuriken pattern as well. Shisui, he left his other Mangeki to you. Danzo's expression changed as he stared at Uchiha Akira in disbelief. I'm Shisui-sensei's disciple. Isn't it only natural that he would leave his other Mangeki to me? Akira replied, his tone making it clear that he saw nothing unusual about this, as if it were the most logical thing in the world. Danzo was left speechless. Indeed, Akira was Shisui's disciple, and his talent was unmatched in the Uchiha's history. It made perfect sense that Shisui would entrust his Mangeki Sharingan to Akira. Danzo realized he had gravely miscalculated. He had planned to use Koda Amatsukami to control Akira and make him his most powerful pawn. But now, he realized that Akira also possessed Shisui's Mangeki Sharingan, which meant he too could use Kota Amatsukami. How could Denzo hope to control him now? Denzo, this is quite a problem for you, isn't it? With the crow capable of using Kota Amatsukami perched on his shoulder, Uchiha Akira's lips curled into a slight smile. Now, Kota Amatsukami won't work on me. As he spoke, Akira's three-tomo Sharingan gleamed with a sinister and chilling murderous intent. Denzo was silent. Have you considered how you'll protect yourself from me? Akira's question struck right at the heart of Denzo's fears. Indeed, with Kota Amatsukami rendered ineffective, how was he supposed to defend himself against Akira? With the seventh gate open, Akira's power was enough to overwhelm even the third Hokage. How could Denzo possibly stand against him? Whoosh! Knowing there was no time for idle chatter, Akira, moving as fast as lightning, dashed toward Denzo. Denzo, his face filled with terror, instinctively tried to retreat. He raised his arm in a defensive posture, but it was no use. With a single swift strike of his hand, Akira's karate chop severed Denzo's right arm. Even though it was just a flesh and bone arm, under the enormous power of Akira's chakra, it cut through as easily as a divine blade. As blood splattered and Denzo screamed in agony, his right arm was severed and fell to the ground. The last time Akira opened the seventh gate, his punch had shattered Denzo's arm. This time, he had sliced it clean off with a single strike. It wasn't that Akira couldn't kill Denzo outright, but he had his eye on Denzo's Sharingan. He wanted to claim Shisui's Mangeki Sharingan as his own, so he delayed killing Denzo immediately. Who knew if Denzo would use Shisui's Mangeki to activate Izanagi again after death? Akira wanted to collect both of Shisui's eyes. So, after severing Denzo's arm with a single strike, Akira, moving with lightning speed, acted once more. In the seventh gate state, Akira's speed was unparalleled. His actions were so swift that Denzo couldn't even keep up. With a sharp motion, Akira plucked the Mangeki Sharingan from Denzo's right eye socket. Another scream of agony echoed as the transplanted Mangeki Sharingan fell into Akira's hand. The bloodied Mangeki Sharingan was carefully placed into the other eye socket of the crow perched on Akira's shoulder, securing Shisui's pair of eyes. With the pair of Mangeki Sharingan in hand, their true power could be fully realized. Denzo. Seeing Denzo's severed arm and missing Sharingan, the third Hokage finally managed to stand, his voice filled with concern as he called out to his old comrade. Despite the many differences and disagreements between them, Denzo had taken on all the dirty and dark tasks, allowing the third Hokage to maintain his image as a virtuous leader. Moreover, they had been partners since childhood, a relationship that could be described as both love and hate. Otherwise, Denzo wouldn't have risked his life to save the Hokage earlier. Now, seeing Denzo in such a wretched state, the third Hokage's heart was filled with worry. Who would have thought that two seasoned cage-level fighters, joining forces, would be unable to defeat a mere 7-year-old child? It only proved how terrifyingly powerful the 8 gates were. No wonder Might Do, a mere genin, had been able to single-handedly crush the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist by opening all 8 gates. As these thoughts raced through his mind, the third Hokage's eyes grew resolute. Gazing at Uchiha Akira, his expression turned deadly serious. Uchiha Akira, your strength far surpasses my expectations, the third Hokage began. If we were to continue this fight, perhaps neither Denzo nor I could defeat you. But as the Hokage of Konoha, killing me won't be as easy as you think. It was as if he had made up his mind, and his tone carried a finality that chilled the air. The third Hokage began forming hand seals with a gravity that made Akira's skin crawl. Even though Akira had opened the 7th gate, making him one of the most powerful fighters in the world, the sight of the third Hokage's determined seal-weaving sent shivers down his spine. A sense of unprecedented danger sounded alarm bells in Akira's mind. Just as Akira was about to strike to interrupt the Hokage's jutsu, the third Hokage finished his hand seals. With a final, resounding shout, he declared, "Sealing jutsu, Reaper Death Seal." As the third Hokage spoke, Akira saw something terrifying materialize behind him. A spectral figure, like a demon, appeared behind the third Hokage. With a ghastly, menacing face, holding a knife in its mouth, the figure exuded an aura of pure terror. As this spectral figure loomed behind the Hokage, Akira felt the temperature around him plummet. Reaper Death Seal. Akira knew the sealing jutsu, one of the most powerful in the ninja world. The jutsu called upon the power of the Death God to sever the souls of both the caster and the target, sealing them within the Death God's stomach, where they would battle for eternity. Moreover, the jutsu was so potent that it could bypass any defense or power to tear a soul from its body. Even with the 7th gate open? Akira thought, even if I opened the 8th gate, or even used my Mangeki Sharingan, if the death god seizes my soul and slices it from my body, I'll be dead for sure. The Reaper Death Seal was a forbidden jutsu that ignored all defenses. I didn't expect that the 3rd Hokage had already learned the Reaper Death Seal at this point, Akira thought, his heart heavy with unease. Indeed, as a veteran cage-level ninja, if you don't kill them quickly, unexpected complications can arise. The power of the life simulator was extraordinary, allowing Akira to simulate life and grow stronger. But life-risking jutsus were always terrifying. For example, the Ryan Tensei, a life-risking jutsu that could revive others, even thousands at a time. For example, the 8 Gates Final Gate, Death Gate, which allowed Might Guy, a mere jonin, to overpower even the 6 Paths Madara. And now, standing before him was the Reaper Death Seal, another life-risking forbidden jutsu that could seal anyone's soul, no matter their power. Whoosh! Having invoked the Reaper Death Seal, the 3rd Hokage was now fully committed, his heart set on sacrificing himself. He charged straight toward Uchiha Akira. As the 3rd Hokage moved, the terrifying Shinigami figure behind him followed, moving toward Akira with the intent to claim his soul. Chapter 84, 7th Gate vs. 7th Gate, slaying Danzo again. Is the Reaper Death Seal powerful? Undoubtedly. After all, it's a super kill move that ignores the difference in strength and defense, and is executed at the cost of the caster's life. How could it not be strong? However, Uchiha Akira was well aware that for the Reaper Death Seal to succeed, there was a crucial prerequisite: the caster must grab the target. This is the advantage of knowing the story in advance. Seeing the 3rd Hokage rushing toward him with the Grim Reaper's shadow trailing behind, Uchiha Akira immediately retreated, not giving him any chance to get close. In his 7th gate state, Uchiha Akira's speed was among the top in the ninja world. If he wanted to evade, even the 4th Raikage might not be able to catch up. Thus, for 2 full minutes, the battlefield was filled with the figures of the 3rd Hokage and Uchiha Akira, but the 3rd Hokage couldn't get close to him at all. Though Danzo had lost an eye and an arm, he could still see that the 3rd Hokage was trying to get close to Akira. After some thought, Danzo realized that without an arm, he couldn't form hand seals and thus couldn't use ninjutsu. As for high-level techniques like single-handed seals, Danzo wasn't capable of that. So, he could only pull out 2 kunai, timing them just right to throw at Uchiha Akira, hoping to block his movements. Danzo didn't understand why, in his 7th gate state, Akira was retreating from the 3rd Hokage's attack. But since Akira was retreating, it made sense for Danzo to try and stop him. The Reaper Death Seal's specter could only be seen by the caster and the target, so Danzo was unaware of it. With his 3 Tomo Sharingan, Akira's visual acuity was sharp. Sensing the 2 kunai flying toward him, he swiftly knocked them aside. At the same time, his Sharingan swept over to Danzo, and his killing intent surged. At first, Akira had been focused on dodging the 3rd Hokage's pursuit, leaving Danzo unbothered. If he had just stayed out of the way like a bystander, Akira might have ignored him. But now, Danzo had decided to cause trouble. Anyone who's played video games knows that when fighting a boss, it's often the annoying minions that cause the most trouble. Most people would choose to clear the area first before taking on the boss, right? At this moment, Danzo was like one of those annoying minions. Swish! Originally focused on evading the 3rd Hokage, Akira now activated his body flicker technique, instantly appearing before Danzo. Danzo's sole remaining eye widened in shock as Akira appeared in front of him in a flash. He felt a deep terror. He wanted to dodge, but how could he escape? In Danzo's vision, all he could see was the shadow of a fist rapidly enlarging. Then, his chest was pierced through, leaving a large gaping hole. Blood mixed with shattered bones exploded out of his back. Danzo looked down at his chest, seeing a bowl-sized hole, clear through to the other side. The light in his eyes slowly faded, and his body collapsed. Lord 3rd Hokage! Elder Danzo is dead again. Wait, why did I say again? This is Uchiha Akira, he actually dared to attack the Hokage. Following the massive disturbance caused by the daytime tiger, many of Konoha's ninjas had begun to arrive on the scene, including Kakashi and Might Guy. They arrived just in time to see Uchiha Akira kill Danzo with a single punch. Seeing the 3rd Hokage in such a pitiful state, seemingly on the brink of collapse, everyone's faces were filled with shock. On one hand, Might Guy was stunned that Akira, who had opened the 7th gate just a few days ago, could still fight today. Kakashi, on the other hand, was shocked to see that Danzo and the 3rd Hokage had seemingly teamed up, and yet Danzo had been killed? Was Akira's strength really this overwhelming? However, from the situation, Akira still appeared full of energy, while the 3rd Hokage was exhausted. But why was Akira being chased all over by the 3rd Hokage? You've come at just the right time. As the 3rd Hokage of Konoha, I order you all to take down Uchiha Akira together. Breathing heavily, the 3rd Hokage was clearly at the end of his strength, but seeing Kakashi and a dozen other ninjas arrive and with more gathering, he urgently gave the order. The 3rd Hokage's usual upright image was useful after all. At his command, the surrounding ninjas immediately launched an attack on Akira, including several Genin. However, even though these Genin were somewhat stronger, compared to Akira in his 7th gate state, they were nothing more than slightly sturdier ants. Even though Kakashi had a Sharingan, he still couldn't keep up with Akira's movements. In the blink of an eye, several Genin had already been incapacitated by Akira. Although Akira was dodging the 3rd Hokage's pursuit, it didn't mean he couldn't deal with these minor obstacles. Might Guy. Seeing that ordinary Genin couldn't hold Akira back, the 3rd Hokage specifically called out Might Guy by name. After all, it was Might Guy who taught Akira the 8 gates. Now, only he has the ability to restrain him. Sigh. Hearing the 3rd Hokage specifically name him, and seeing the eyes of many Konoha ninjas on him, Might Guy sighed inwardly. As a ninja of Konoha, he couldn't defy the Hokage's orders. Faced with the conflict between loyalty and friendship, Guy knew he had to choose one. Besides, Guy could see that if he didn't give it his all, the 3rd Hokage might actually die here today. With that in mind, Guy began to prepare. He crossed his arms in front of himself, lowering his center of gravity slightly. The veins on his body bulged, like little worms wriggling beneath his skin. Gate of opening, gate of healing, gate of life, gate of pain, gate of limit, gate of view, gate of wonder. Boom! Just a few days ago, Guy had managed to break through to the 7th gate. Now, he pushed himself to open it. A terrifying surge of chakra erupted from his body, and the same blue steam began to rise from him. The chakra, this overwhelming chakra, burst forth. In terms of aura alone, with both of them having opened the 7th gate and possessing the chakra of elite Genin, the intensity of Guy's chakra rivaled that of Akira. Seeing Guy in this state, the Konoha ninjas who had been intimidated by Akira's power began to feel relieved. Great! Might Guy can also open the 7th gate. Seeing Guy's form, enveloped in the same blue steam, the 3rd Hokage felt a surge of joy. Indeed, with both of them in the 7th gate state, Might Guy should be able to hold Akira in check. As long as Guy can restrain him, I'll have the chance to use the Reaper Death Seal and take Akira down with me. At my age, if I can drag down a Uchiha whose potential surpasses even Madara's, isn't that a worthy trade? Whoosh! Opening the 7th gate, Guy indeed wanted to see how he compared to Akira. Moving like lightning, Guy charged at him. With a simple, unadorned punch, it was pure strength and speed. Seeing Guy's punch coming, Akira didn't dodge, instead, he met it head-on with a punch of his own. Fist collided with fist, 7th gate against 7th gate. A terrifying shockwave burst forth from the point of impact, sweeping out in all directions and forcing the surrounding ninjas back by 100 meters. Simultaneously, Akira was forced to take 3 steps back, each step leaving a deep crater in the ground. Hiss, the power of the 8 gates is truly terrifying. Just a clash of fists, and it's as powerful as an A-rank ninjutsu clash. With such speed and power, even a Genin doesn't stand a chance. The Konoha ninjas watching were shocked by the sheer force of the fist collision between Akira and Guy. In contrast, the 3rd Hokage felt overwhelming joy. Indeed, Guy's strength in the 7th gate state even surpassed Akira's by a bit. Excellent! There's no need for anyone else's help, just Might Guy alone can hold Akira in check, giving me the opportunity to use the Reaper Death Seal. To think I'm slightly weaker in raw strength. In a direct clash, Akira was surprised to find himself forced back 3 steps. However, after a moment of reflection, he could accept this outcome. Firstly, he was only 7 years old, and his body wasn't fully developed yet. Compared to other ninjas, this wasn't much of a disadvantage, but when both were in the 7th gate state, this small disadvantage could be the deciding factor. Moreover, his taijutsu was more of a hobby, even the daytime tiger. even the daytime tiger was something he had copied from Might Guy during the Fourth Great Ninja War in the life simulation. Meanwhile, Might Guy was a pure taijutsu specialist, and at the peak of his physical prowess, his body was honed to an exceptional level. Right now, he truly was Konoha's blue beast. So, when it came to pure strength, it was understandable that Akira couldn't match up to Might Guy. However, Guy's advantages lay in his strength and taijutsu skills. But Akira's advantages were that, in this state, he could still use ninjutsu and had the visual prowess of the Sharingan. Therefore, with both of them in the 7th gate state, each had their strengths and weaknesses. Chapter 85, If the 7th gate isn't enough, then I'll open another. In the state of opening the 7th gate, the chakra levels of Might Guy and Uchiha Akira were almost identical. However, Might Guy's strength lay in his physical power and his mastery of taijutsu. On the other hand, Uchiha Akira's strengths were in his use of ninjutsu and the super-enhanced dynamic vision provided by his Sharingan. So, in a one-on-one duel, both had their own advantages. In a battle between two warriors with the 7th gate open, it was a near stalemate. Back and forth, Might Guy, true to his title, transformed into a blue beast. As for Uchiha Akira, he focused mostly on dodging, occasionally interspersing his moves with ninjutsu. While his outward momentum wasn't as fierce as Might Guy's, his use of ninjutsu kept him from falling behind in the fight. In this clash between two 7th gate warriors, the surrounding ninjas could only act as spectators, they didn't have the qualifications to join the battle. Kakashi, however, pushed up the forehead protector covering his eye, revealing his left eye's 3-tomo Sharingan, intently observing the battle between Might Guy and Uchiha Akira. With his skill and the dynamic vision provided by the Sharingan, Kakashi might barely have the ability to intervene. But he would need to find the perfect opportunity. Thus, for 3 minutes, Uchiha Akira and Might Guy battled fiercely, their blows reducing everything within several kilometers to rubble. Finally, when Might Guy landed a punch on Uchiha Akira, his body inexplicably passed right through Akira's. By the time Guy realized what had happened and tried to change his move, it was too late. The phantom-like Akira executed a leaf gale kick to Guy's back, sending him flying. In his 7th gate state, combined with Shisui's body flicker technique, Uchiha Akira had finally managed to land a hit on Might Guy, injuring him. Zzzzz. Just as Akira struck Might Guy, a sharp sound rang out. It was Kakashi. In his right hand, visible blue lightning crackled, while his Sharingan locked onto Akira, like an arrow ready to be released, targeting him with deadly precision. Chidori combined with the accuracy of the Sharingan was not something even Uchiha Akira could take lightly. Although Guy was injured by the kick, his combat power wasn't significantly diminished. Guy flipped back to his feet and charged at Akira again, his momentum undiminished. The blue beast was still a beast, and being injured only stirred its ferocity. Kakashi knew that sometimes the mere threat of an attack was more menacing than actually releasing it. Thus, the aura of his Chidori was incredibly strong, keeping it ready and aimed at Akira, forcing Akira to split his attention between Guy and Kakashi. Fighting Might Guy in his 7th gate state while also keeping an eye on Kakashi? Naturally, after a few exchanges, Akira found himself completely overwhelmed by Guy, seemingly on the verge of defeat. Nearby, the 3rd Hokage swallowed several soldier pills, quickly replenishing his stamina. Though Might Guy had the upper hand against Akira, the 3rd Hokage still didn't act hastily. He, too, was waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Having already activated the Reaper Death Seal and summoned the Death God, the 3rd Hokage knew his fate was sealed. So, his next move had to hit its mark. Under the onslaught of Might Guy's relentless attacks, Uchiha Akira was forced to retreat. Then, Guy executed a leaf-strong whirlwind, striking Akira's crossed arms and sending him flying several hundred meters, crashing through several buildings in the Sarutobi clan's compound. Cough, cough. Standing up from the rubble of the collapsed buildings, Uchiha Akira coughed twice, a trickle of bright red blood dripping from the corner of his mouth. He was nearing his limit. Akira could feel it. Firstly, at 7 years old, his body wasn't as developed as Might Guy's. So, in the 7th gate state, his endurance couldn't match Guy's. Secondly, he had opened the 7th gate before Guy, so his time in that state was also shorter. The 7th gate placed an enormous burden on the body, making every inch of his skin feel as if it were being torn apart. Moreover, after being struck by Guy, Akira could feel that his body was truly reaching its limit. Akira, your talent is far greater than mine. I can't compare to you, Might Guy admitted, despite having the upper hand. He knew that his advantage was partly due to the fact that this was essentially a tag team battle, with Kakashi poised to strike, splitting Akira's focus. Wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, Uchiha Akira shook his head and said, "Victory is victory, and defeat is defeat. There's no need to find excuses. I, Uchiha Akira, am not the kind of person who makes excuses for losing." His words showed a certain level of magnanimity. After a brief pause, Akira added, "Besides, I haven't lost yet." "Humph, stubborn fool." Someone among the surrounding ninjas couldn't help but sneer. Yes, Akira was powerful, but it was clear to everyone that he was at his limit, unable to hold on any longer. Yet he still claimed he hadn't lost? Wasn't that just being stubborn? Hearing this, Akira glanced at the ninja who had spoken. Feeling Akira's gaze, the ninja reflexively shrank back, hiding within the crowd, mentally chanting, "You can't see me, you can't see me." After a brief glance at the ninja, Akira withdrew his gaze. A mere clown, not worth his attention. Akira's eyes swept over Might Guy, who, in his seventh gate state, was still brimming with energy, clearly capable of maintaining this form for a long time. Kakashi's Sharingan was still locked onto Akira, his S-rank ninjutsu Chidori at the ready, waiting to strike, its threat palpable. And the third Hokage, who had consumed soldier pills, had regained much of his strength. The death god's specter still loomed behind him, the knife once held in its mouth now gripped in its hand. The death god's eyes were fixed on Akira, its gaze alone sending chills down his spine. As for Danzo, his chest had a gaping hole where his heart should have been, he was clearly dead, beyond the possibility of using Izanagi to resurrect. Unless he had set up a preemptive sealing technique for revival, he was truly gone this time. But judging by his appearance, with no Sharingan left, it was clear he no longer had the means to activate Izanagi. Meanwhile, more and more ninjas were gathering around the Hyuga clan, the Inyazuka clan, the Inoshikacho trio. And more ninjas were still arriving. Looking around, there were already several hundred gathered. The situation had turned drastically against Akira. Yet, Uchiha Akira's expression remained calm, and he even felt a bit fortunate. Thankfully, in the life simulator, he had successfully unlocked the 8th gate, just in case. Indeed, the 7th gate alone wasn't enough. If he hadn't unlocked the 8th gate, today might have been the day he truly met his end. Uchiha Akira, surrender now. You've already lost. As Akira surveyed the battlefield, recognizing the nearly impossible odds he faced alone, a ninja in the crowd shouted at him. Uchiha Akira didn't respond. To be more precise, he didn't deem it worth responding to. "Akira, stop. The battle is over." Might Guy urged him. Although he didn't know exactly what had happened, or why Akira had attacked the Hokage and Elder Danzo, Guy understood that Akira couldn't win with just the power of the 7th gate. Yes, even with the 7th gate, it's not enough to fight against so many ninjas. Akira sighed, nodding in agreement. Hearing this, Might Guy felt a slight sense of relief. Did Akira understand the situation and decide to stop? But, however, before Guy could fully exhale, Akira's tone shifted. "If the 7th gate isn't enough to change the outcome, then I'll open another gate." Boom! Akira's words were like a thunderclap, leaving Guy utterly stunned. He was already in the 7th gate state. And he said he was going to open another gate. That would mean. But surrendering so easily is impossible. Chapter 86, The Power of the 8 Gates, The Fall of the Hokage. As Uchiha Akira finished speaking, not only did Might Guy's expression change, but so did the expressions of Kakashi, the 3rd Hokage, and many other seasoned ninjas. Might Do had always been a lowly genin in Konoha. However, years ago, Might Do opened the 8 gates, single-handedly facing the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist, killing some and forcing the rest to flee. That accomplishment was nothing short of legendary. The forbidden technique, the 8 gates, which trades life for immense power, left many in awe. But now, Uchiha Akira said he was going to open the 8th gate? Opening the 8th gate? Has he really managed to master the 8 gates to the point of opening the final gate? The 3rd Hokage looked at Uchiha Akira in disbelief. As for whether opening the 8th gate would lead to his death, the 3rd Hokage didn't care at this point. He had already used the Reaper death seal, meaning he was destined to die. He was prepared to take Uchiha Akira down with him, so death didn't scare him anymore. In fact, had he known that Akira would open the 8th gate, he might not have bothered using the Reaper death seal. He could have just laid down and accepted his fate. While the third Hokage was resigned to his fate, Kakashi, Might Guy, and the other ninjas were all shocked, finding it hard to believe. The 8 Gates is a powerful forbidden technique that requires years of arduous training to master, and it's not something one can open just because they want to. Even Might Guy had only recently managed to open the 7th gate after nearly 15 years of training. In the original series, when the 13-year-old Rock Lee opened the 5th gate, Kakashi was shocked, recognizing Lee's talent in taijutsu. Kakashi himself had trained in the 8 gates but had only managed to open the 2nd gate. Yet now, after just 6 months of training, Uchiha Akira was claiming that he could open the 8th gate? This seemed impossible by conventional standards. But then again, in just 1 year, Akira had evolved his Sharingan to the 3-tomo level. In that same year, he had grown from an ordinary child to a full-fledged Genin. It seemed that conventional logic didn't apply to him. Moreover, at this point, it was unlikely that Uchiha Akira would boast about something he couldn't do, especially in such a critical situation. Whether they believed it or not, everyone was stunned by Akira's words. Uchiha Akira was not one to waste words. Similarly, this was not a time for wasting time. In the Uchiha clan's district, clan leader Fugaku and the others were likely still fighting fiercely, buying Akira time. The fact that no members of the Anbu had appeared suggested that they were all being held off by his clan members. After saying what he needed to say, Uchiha Akira noticed the varied expressions on the faces around him, some filled with doubt, others with shock and disbelief. Without further ado, Akira acted, understanding that actions speak louder than words. He extended his hand, pressing his thumb against his chest. At the same time, Uchiha Akira's chakra surged even more. The sheer force of his chakra was so intense that it blew his hair back, making him resemble a Super Saiyan. The blue steam that had been emanating from him slowly turned crimson, like blood. These were the signs of his blood boiling and evaporating. The blue steam of the 7th gate was a result of evaporating sweat, the crimson steam of the 8th gate was from evaporating blood. At the same time, his hair and eyebrows turned the same blood-red color. Red Uchiha Akira's entire appearance was now a brilliant red. His hair, eyebrows, the steam around him, and the crimson Sharingan. He looked like an ancient demon that had emerged from a pool of blood. The terrifying chakra he emitted was so overwhelming that it seemed to suffocate everyone around him. The 8th gate. He really opened the 8th gate. He's actually reached this level of mastery. Might Guy felt as if his entire worldview had crumbled. The 8 gates were something he had taught Akira. He himself had trained for years, and only recently had he managed to open the 7th gate. He hadn't even fully mastered the 7th gate's accompanying technique, the daytime tiger. Yet, in just 6 months, Uchiha Akira had completely surpassed him, leaving him in the dust. Is this really it? Am I just a failure? No, it's not that I'm a failure. Uchiha Akira is just a monster. Shaking his head, Guy, who had briefly doubted himself, adjusted his thoughts. The ninja world was full of geniuses, but now Guy believed that there were 2 kinds of geniuses in the ninja world. One was Uchiha Akira, and the other was every other genius who wasn't Uchiha Akira. The 8th gate. So this is what it looks like. Kakashi raised his hand to shield his face, his eyes filled with disbelief and shock. At this moment, the Chidori he had been holding as a deterrent was dissipated. There was no need to attack. Just from the explosive chakra waves alone, Kakashi realized that his Chidori was no longer a threat to Uchiha Akira. It was better to let it go. Not bad. To witness the opening of the 8th gate before I die is quite a sight. Seeing Akira activate the 8 gates, the 3rd Hokage felt at ease. Since Akira had opened the 8th gate, his death was now inevitable. Without hesitation, after opening the 8th gate, Uchiha Akira locked his gaze onto the 3rd Hokage. Akira, wait! Seeing Akira with his sights set on the 3rd Hokage, Might Guy shouted. He quickly rushed toward Akira, trying to stop him. But the crimson figure flashed by, moving so quickly that even Guy, who had opened the 7th gate, couldn't keep up. The difference between the 7th gate and the 8th gate was like night and day. The 3rd Hokage was gone. Whether he went peacefully or not, no one could say, but at the very least, he felt no pain. With a single punch, Uchiha Akira unleashed a terrifying chakra explosion that instantly vaporized the 3rd Hokage's body. Yes, it was as if he had been vaporized, rather than merely blown to pieces. As the 3rd Hokage was instantly killed, the death god he had summoned, ready to reap souls, also dissipated in vain. Not only was the death god unable to claim Uchiha Akira's soul, but it also failed to take the soul of the third Hokage, the summoner. Perhaps this was the first time the death god had ever come up empty-handed. After killing the third Hokage with a single punch, Akira glanced at Danzo's corpse. His body was still there, indicating that Izanaga had not been used. But just to be sure, Akira delivered another punch, completely obliterating Danzo's remains. With this, both the third Hokage and Danzo Konoha's two power players, one in the light and the other in the shadows, had fallen at Uchiha Akira's hands. Akira, why? Why would you risk your life to kill the third Hokage? Might Guy asked, his voice filled with anguish, as the remains of the third Hokage and Danzo lay scattered. But Akira didn't answer Guy's question. At that moment, though the decapitation plan had succeeded, Akira was still worried about the Uchiha clan's situation. Apart from Itachi, there were still the Konoha Anbu, the Root, and Uchiha Obito to contend with. Who knew how things were going in the Uchiha district? Were Keiko and the old man still safe? Without responding to Guy, Akira's eyes flicked to him before he took off at lightning speed, heading towards the Uchiha district at full throttle. The Eight Gates formation was a forbidden technique that burned one's life force. Akira had just activated it and killed the third Hokage, but he hoped he could hold on a little longer, at least until he reached the Uchiha district. Whoosh! In his eighth gate state, Uchiha Akira's chakra levels were dozens of times greater than those of even the strongest cage-level ninjas. At full speed, he moved like a red streak of lightning in the night, a blur across the landscape. At this speed, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to call him the fastest in the ninja world. Even with his 3 Tomo Sharingan, he felt as though he could barely keep up with his own movement. The scenery around him blurred into a single line as he sped through. As Akira disappeared into the distance, the Sarutobi clan's territory fell into dead silence once more. If not for the fact that everything within several kilometers had been reduced to rubble, one might have thought it was all just a dream. Moreover, with Akira in his 8 gates state, the sheer power he displayed was suffocating. Not only was there no one who could stop him, but no one even dared to think of trying. As they watched Akira leave, Might Guy's expression turned thoughtful. Where is Akira rushing off to? Even after killing the third Hokage, where was he headed? That direction leads to the Uchiha compound, Kakashi pointed out. Got it. Realization dawned on Might Guy as he nodded. Akira must know he's going to die after opening the 8th gate, so he's trying to go home. Yes, if possible, everyone would want to return home to die in peace. I don't think that's the reason, Kakashi disagreed, shaking his head. Akira looked urgent, like he had something important to do. And considering the Konoha police force and Anbu haven't shown up yet, the Uchiha compound is in trouble. Kakashi's words finally clicked for Guy, who shouted in alarm before rushing toward the Uchiha compound. As for the 1,000 or so ninjas left behind, after exchanging puzzled glances, they too began to follow, curious about what was happening at the Uchiha compound. Chapter 87, Descending from the Heavens, Uchiha Akira with the 8 Gates. The ANBU, the Elite Assassination Squad, was a special forces unit created by the second Hokage. This organization answered only to the Hokage. After the second Hokage established the ANBU, other villages quickly followed suit. Although in the original anime, the ANBU often seemed like mere tools without much flair, it was mainly because they faced key plot characters. Overall, the ANBU were still a formidable force. In many people's minds, ANBU members were equivalent to elite ninja. This was evident from the fact that those who could join the ANBU were at least at the level of elite Chunin. After all, Chunin were capable of leading a small team. The Root, created by Danzo as a counterpart to the ANBU, was no less powerful and even more loyal and thorough in their operations. Now, with the Uchiha clan being targeted, all the ANBU and Root operatives had been deployed. On the battlefield within the Uchiha district, lives were being lost one after another. The battle between Uchiha Fugaku and Itachi was still ongoing. Uchiha Obito moved through the battlefield, collecting Sharingan from fallen Uchiha ninjas whenever possible. However, the Uchiha's defensive fighting style meant that while the battle was fierce, there were few casualties. This left Obito somewhat dissatisfied with the situation. As he collected the Sharingan, Obito also kept an ear out for any commotion in the distance. As Might Guy opened the 7th gate, the sounds of battle intensified even further. Similarly, Fugaku and the elders, hearing the massive commotion, knew that the battle on Akira's side had reached a critical point. They steeled themselves, continuing to delay and hold back the ANBU and Root ninja. The battle had already been raging for over half an hour. In that time, only about 20 to 30% of the Uchiha ninjas had fallen. Thanks to Fugaku and the elders' efforts to calm the Uchiha clan's desperate mentality, the losses were minimized. Without their intervention, half of the Uchiha would likely have perished in the half-hour of intense fighting. As the intense battle dragged on, the thunderous noises from the distant fight gradually began to subside. At this point, Fugaku and the elders felt a wave of tension. Had the battle ended? Did young Akira succeed in his assassination plan? Or did he fail? If he failed, they could only hope he managed to escape with his life. It seems the fight in the distance has ended. I wonder what the outcome is, Obito murmured to himself, noting the silence that followed the earlier chaos. At this point, many Uchiha had fallen in battle, but Obito had only managed to collect a dozen or so 3 Tomo Sharingan, leaving him somewhat dissatisfied. It looks like Itachi is extremely exhausted now, whispered Orochimaru, who had been observing the battlefield, his cold snake eyes fixed on Uchiha Itachi. More than anything, Orochimaru was focused on Itachi, coveting his body above all else. Now, after such a long and intense battle between the two Manjiki Sharingan users, Itachi appeared incredibly weakened. Orochimaru's anticipation grew. He wondered if, when the battle ended, he would have the opportunity to seize Itachi's body. Orochimaru's heart was filled with expectation, his patience unwavering. After all, opportunity favors the prepared. Whoosh! But just as the battle in the Uchiha district continued, with no end in sight, a blood-red figure shot toward the Uchiha district like a flash of lightning. The village of Konoha was enormous. Though it was called a village, it felt more like a small nation. Even with the 8 gates fully opened, allowing Uchiha Akira's speed to soar to its peak, he still felt as though time was passing agonizingly slowly. The duration of the 8 gates was far too short. As Akira continued his high-speed run, his body felt like a machine, with screws nearly coming loose, ready to fall off. Even worse, many of his components were rapidly deteriorating. Bright fissures began to appear on Akira's skin, with blood flowing through them like molten lava. Grit your teeth, hold on a little longer, just a bit more. Akira had opened the 8 gates, quickly killed the 3rd Hokage, and destroyed Danzo's body without saying a word to Might Guy. He had then immediately rushed back to the Uchiha district. If he couldn't hold out during this sprint, it would feel like a waste to have opened the 8 gates. The practical benefits were minimal. At that moment, Akira felt a pang of regret. If only he had a space-time ninjutsu like the Flying Thunder God to transfer quickly. Almost there, almost there. From a distance, Akira's Sharingan could already see the Uchiha district. Akira's high-speed movement wasn't on the ground or jumping between buildings, he was running straight through the air. Yes, Uchiha Akira was now running in mid-air. In the state of the 8 gates, he could use the principle of compressed air blasts to run through the air. In a sense, this was a flying-like ability, an additional effect of opening the 8 gates. At this moment, Akira's mind was almost entirely focused on stabilizing his body's condition. It felt like he was a bicycle on a highway, speeding at 300 km per hour. This extreme overload made it seem as if the tires were about to catch fire and the bike might fall apart at any moment. When all of one's mental energy is concentrated on a single task, time seems to lose its meaning, and one cannot perceive its passage. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Akira saw the Uchiha district. Hundreds, if not thousands, of ninjas were locked in combat. The Uchiha, being a clan of fire wielders, mainly used fire release, so the Uchiha district was ablaze with fire, spreading wildly in the dark night. Countless ninjas lay dead on the ground, some from the ANBU, some from the root, and, of course, some Uchiha. As Akira sprinted through the sky, many of the combatants on the battlefield felt a sense of something approaching and looked up. Like a blood-red meteor, a streak of crimson light shot toward the Uchiha district. What? What is that? One of the ninjas couldn't help but ask as they saw the rapidly approaching blood-red light. Is that a person? Obito, watching the approaching light from behind his mask, sounded shocked. Blood-red light? Could it be Akira? Fugaku, who had his Manjiki Sharingan activated, had the best vision on the field. Seeing the light from afar, Fugaku recognized it as a person. Recalling the legend of the 8 gates, Fugaku was about 70 to 80% sure that this figure was Uchiha Akira. Is that a person? Itachi, who also had his Manjiki Sharingan activated, saw the true form of the light as a human figure. But someone running at such high speed through the air? What was going on? Who could it be? As the ninjas on the battlefield in the Uchiha district noticed the blood-red figure in the sky, Akira arrived within seconds. Boom! Like a massive meteor crashing down from the night sky, Uchiha Akira landed, creating a terrifyingly large crater upon impact. At the same time, the immense chakra pressure, like a hurricane, oppressed everyone on the field. With his arrival, Uchiha Akira immediately drew everyone's attention. Even the duel between Fugaku and Itachi came to a halt as both turned their gaze toward Akira. Akira's skin had begun to char, a sign of his body beginning to carbonize. Deep fissures ran across his body like cracks, with blood flowing through them like lava, while blood-red steam continued to billow out. His scarlet three-tomo Sharingan quickly scanned the entire battlefield. Danzo is dead. The third Hokage is as good as dead. Akira announced loudly. Boom! Akira's words hit the battlefield like a thunderclap, leaving everyone in shock. Danzo's death wasn't much of a surprise to anyone other than the root ninja, who had already assumed he was dead. But the third Hokage too? Looking at Akira's current state, his chakra radiating a suffocating intensity, had he been the one to kill the third Hokage? Did he actually take down the third Hokage? After making his declaration, Akira's three-tomo Sharingan searched the battlefield, finally spotting Obito. In a flash, Akira moved like lightning, almost as fast as the flying thunder god, appearing before Obito and throwing a punch at him. While his 8 gates could still hold out for a little while longer, Akira was determined to take down Obito. Chapter 88, Obito realizes the joke's on him? Boom! In the state of opening the 7th gate, a casual strike from Uchiha Akira carried the power of an A-rank ninjutsu. Now, with the 8th gate opened, every move he made possessed power equivalent to S-rank ninjutsu. With one strike, the ground within a radius of tens of meters was completely obliterated. A simple attack, but it was as if a single target attack had been transformed into a wide area one. However, Uchiha Obito's figure remained standing, unmoved. Uchiha Akira's attack passed right through him as if he wasn't even there. Upon seeing Akira's sudden appearance, merely announcing the deaths of the third Hokage and Shimura Danzo before attacking a mysterious figure, the people in the Uchiha district exchanged confused glances, their faces showing expressions of bewilderment. Who is that? How did he just evade Akira's attack? An elder asked, his eyes fixed on Obito. Indeed, Uchiha Akira, having opened the 8th gate, displayed terrifying power enough to shock anyone. Yet, this mysterious man in the spiral-patterned wooden mask seemed completely unfazed by such an attack, leaving the elder perplexed. Who is this person? It wasn't just the elder who was puzzled. Uchiha Fugaku, the ANBU, and the root ninja all noticed Obito's presence as well. When Uchiha Akira arrived, having opened the 8th gate, he immediately became the center of attention. Naturally, when Akira chose to target Obito first but gained no advantage, everyone realized just how formidable this mysterious figure was. A terrifying figure had been hiding nearby all along while they were battling. In many cases, when someone powerful easily defeats an opponent, it's an opportunity to showcase their strength and draw everyone's attention. This is often how a strong antagonist highlights the protagonist's power. But now, Akira was doing the opposite. Despite opening the 8th gate and becoming absurdly strong, he could do nothing against Obito, which instead highlighted Obito's strength, turning Akira into a supporting character. Speaking of Obito, hasn't he always preferred to remain in the shadows? Even within the Akatsuki, few knew of his true identity. But now, Akira's actions had directly exposed him. It's him. While others were unsure of Obito's strength, Uchiha Itachi certainly knew. He had even interacted with Obito, aware that this mysterious man had played a role in the Uchiha clan's massacre. But to think Akira could sense him so keenly? The moment Akira arrived on the battlefield, he targeted this mysterious man? However, Akira also mentioned that the third Hokage was dead? Upon reflection, with Danzo dead and the third Hokage also gone, it seemed that the conflict between the Uchiha and Konoha's leadership had been resolved, in a way. After all, while exterminating the Uchiha was one way to solve the conflict, eliminating Konoha's leadership was another. It was just that Itachi had chosen to strike against the Uchiha, while Akira chose to target Konoha's leadership. And yet, Akira had succeeded first? Thinking about it, Itachi couldn't help but admire Shisui's foresight hedging his bets. With Akira's success, although Itachi felt sorry for the third Hokage, sacrificing one person to save the entire Uchiha clan and maintain the village's peace seemed to achieve the goal from a different perspective. Who is this person? I think I've seen him in the Akatsuki before, just a substitute member. Orochimaru, lurking in the shadows, had initially focused all his attention on Uchiha Itachi. However, when Akira appeared with the 8th gate open and attacked Obito, who remained unscathed, Orochimaru's attention shifted to Obito. As a member of the Akatsuki, Orochimaru prided himself on his memory, recalling that he had seen this person before. But to think that a mere substitute member of the Akatsuki could withstand an attack from Akira, who had opened the 8th gate. It seemed this guy was hiding his true power. Although Obito's face was hidden behind a mask, he stood confidently, unaffected by Akira's attacks. No matter how many times Akira struck, the attacks simply phased through him like he was a phantom. The 8 gates? With the 8th gate open? Indeed, this power is ridiculously strong. But no matter how powerful the attack, if it can't hit, it's useless, right? This guy. Is he really just a single-minded fool? After remaining calm for a while, Obito finally broke his silence. Having watched Akira attack him over 10 times, each time to no effect, Obito couldn't help but mock him in his mind. You know your attacks won't work on me, so why haven't you stopped? After waiting a little longer and enduring several more of Akira's attacks, Obito finally spoke, addressing Uchiha Akira. Although I don't know why my attacks pass through you, I believe there is no such thing as an invincible jutsu in this world. There's no way you can maintain this state indefinitely. No matter how many times I fail, it doesn't matter. As long as I succeed in hitting you once, that's all I need. Gasp. Akira spoke with conviction, and while he didn't directly expose the 5-minute time limit of Obito's Kamui ability, he hinted at it. He actually figured that out. Obito's heart skipped a beat upon hearing Akira's confident words. Fortunately, his face was hidden behind a mask, so no one could see his expression change. Initially, he had thought Akira was just a single-minded fool. But now, it seemed Akira had almost pinpointed the weakness of his Kamui ability. This realization startled Obito. So, this is what they mean when they say Uchiha Akira is the greatest genius in Uchiha history? His analytical ability is terrifying. Wasn't I the one thinking he was just a fool? Turns out the joke's on me? This won't do. He's too confident in his deduction, and my Kamui can only last for 5 minutes. If 5 minutes really pass, I won't be able to withstand his power with the 8th gate open. Watching as Akira's relentless attacks continued, each strike treating him as though he were solid, Obito began to panic. Among the ninja present were several with high intelligence. Uchiha Akira was certainly one of them, as was Orochimaru, who was observing from the shadows. If Akira managed to hold out for 5 minutes, and they discovered that Kamui's invincibility only lasted that long, they would undoubtedly develop strategies to counter him in the future. So at this moment, Obito was starting to feel desperate. But what could he do? With the 8th gate open, Akira relentlessly attacked, giving Obito no opportunity to deactivate Kamui, not even for a second. Gasp, gasp, gasp. Uchiha Akira's attacks were fast and powerful. But unfortunately, Obito's Kamui had a 5-minute duration. For Akira, 5 minutes was too long. His body was now truly at its limit, he was coughing intermittently, with blood trickling from his mouth. But before the blood could even hit the ground, it vaporized into a reddish steam. Akira's state in the 8th gate was indeed terrifyingly powerful. However, facing Obito in his intangible state, all his attacks were futile, making it seem as if Akira were fighting against thin air. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Figures started arriving at the Uchiha district. By now, the fighting within the Uchiha clan had ceased, and all eyes were on the battle between Akira and Obito. Kakashi, Might Guy and the other ninjas followed behind Akira, arriving one after another. Seeing that Akira's attacks had no effect on Obito, Kakashi and the others were left even more shocked. After all, this was the same Akira who had almost single-handedly killed the 3rd Hokage in one strike. But who was this person in the spiral-patterned wooden mask, who could render Akira's attacks useless? Akira, he's reached his limit. Might Guy had already deactivated the 7th gate, and though his body was sore and aching, it hadn't suffered any permanent damage, given the brief duration of the battle. But seeing Akira's body now charred and severely damaged, he spoke with a heavy tone. Indeed, Akira himself felt that his body was utterly exhausted, on the verge of collapsing. Finally, as his body reached its limit, his movements faltered, and he stumbled to the ground. Seeing this, Obito quickly withdrew, silently deactivating his Kamui ability and resetting the 5-minute limit. Akira's consciousness began to blur, his body resembling a charred corpse. He knew he couldn't delay any longer. With his chakra reward already waiting, he made his choice. Chapter 89, Ninja Rank Upgrade, Cage Level. Sigh. Looking at Uchiha Akira lying on the ground, his body charred and severely carbonized like a burnt corpse, Uchiha Itachi silently sighed, feeling a deep respect. Even though Uchiha Akira's ideals were completely different from his own, one could even say they were diametrically opposed, Akira had still sacrificed himself for the Uchiha clan. That, indeed, commanded respect. Finally, this guy is dead. Obito, who had retreated a significant distance, breathed a sigh of relief as he watched Uchiha Akira lying there, slowly slipping away. If Akira's 8 gates technique hadn't reached its limit, Obito wasn't sure how he would have dealt with his power once Kamui's 5-minute time limit was up. As for the others, they looked at Uchiha Akira lying on the ground, his body emitting a reddish steam, and silently sighed. No matter what, the power of the 8 gates was terrifyingly strong. But, unfortunately, Uchiha Akira was still going to die, a super genius who had made a name for himself across the ninja world. In just one short year, he had grown from a child who knew nothing to someone of such power, and he was only 7 years old. This kind of genius was like the brightest comet in the night sky, brilliant and dazzling, but destined to be fleeting, wasn't it? Initially, Uchiha Akira had captured everyone's attention when he appeared with the 8 gates activated. Now, seeing his small body lying there, slowly fading away, many silently sighed. Of course, the old man wasn't feeling particularly sad. He knew very well that when his beloved grandson decided to use the 8 gates, he had already made thorough preparations, so he wouldn't die. Putting aside the thoughts of others as they watched him seemingly step into oblivion, Uchiha Akira, who had long been prepared to exploit a bug, realized that his body had truly reached its limit. If he didn't make a choice soon, he really would die. Without hesitation, Uchiha Akira chose to replenish his chakra. It felt like a character leveling up in an online game. As soon as Uchiha Akira made his choice, his body instantaneously recovered without any warning. The once charred, pitch-black body was now completely healed. Simultaneously, the chakra within Uchiha Akira's body was fully restored and even surged to a new level. Congratulations, your overall strength has risen to cage level. The cost of the life simulator has increased to 1 million ryo. As Uchiha Akira's chakra levels increased, a prompt from the life simulator conveniently appeared before him. The overall strength assessment was based on a combination of factors, including chakra levels, mastery of ninjutsu, and combat experience. After numerous life simulations, and especially after focusing on mastering the 8th gate recently, Uchiha Akira had chosen to enhance his ninjutsu, knowledge, and combat experience multiple times. These were no longer his weak points. As for chakra, Uchiha Akira had reached the peak of elite Genin, just touching the threshold of cage level. Now, with this latest choice, his chakra levels had directly increased by 50%. Naturally, Uchiha Akira had now securely stepped into the realm of cage level. Thus, his overall strength had officially reached cage level. Sigh, it's a pity that my Sharingan still hasn't evolved to the level of the Manjiki. Although reaching cage level was something to be pleased about, Uchiha Akira couldn't help but sigh inwardly about his Sharingan's lack of evolution. His previous ninja rank advancements had all been accompanied by the evolution of his Sharingan. For instance, in his first life simulation, during the Uchiha clan massacre, he had watched all his friends and family die and had awakened his Sharingan right before his own death, instantly gaining chakra from nothing. The second Tomo had awakened during a life simulation when he and Keiko left the village and became rogue ninjas, depending on each other for survival. More accurately, it was Keiko who had taken care of him, not abandoning him even after the Uchiha massacre had left him as a burden. When he witnessed Keiko being killed by Kakuzu during the simulation, he awakened his 2 Tomo Sharingan and became a Chunin. As for the third Tomo, it was activated not long ago when he witnessed the death of Shisui-sensei, evolving his Sharingan to the 3 Tomo stage, and his strength officially reached the Genin level. But now, despite his overall strength reaching cage level, his Sharingan hadn't evolved to the Manjiki stage. So, even though possessing a Manjiki Sharingan means you're a cage-level powerhouse, a cage-level ninja doesn't necessarily have a Manjiki Sharingan? Uchiha Akira couldn't help but reflect on this. Indeed, many possess a 3 Tomo Sharingan, but the Mangeki is as rare as a phoenix's feather. Evolving to the Mangeki is far more challenging than I imagined. Even after what could be considered hundreds of years of experience through the life simulator, I still haven't unlocked the Mangeki. One doesn't know how to live without experiencing poverty, one remains naive without having faced hardship. Only after enduring poverty can one truly grow. Similarly, those who haven't experienced enough setbacks will always remain naive. A man's maturity isn't determined by his age but by how much hardship he's endured. So, is the Sharingan the same? Without enough emotional trauma, the Mangeki won't awaken, no matter how many centuries one lives through the life simulator. But with enough sadness, like when Obito awakened his Mangeki at such a young age. So, should I even aim to unlock the Mangeki, or is it better left alone? In fact, not unlocking it might not be so bad. With the life simulator, given enough time, I can reach Super Cage level, even 6 Paths level, and punch Madara in the face, kick Kaguya down. Why go through unimaginable pain to unlock the Mangeki? But still, Cage level. The cost of a life simulation has indeed increased tenfold, now at 1 million Ryo per session. Although reaching Cage level was certainly a cause for celebration, Uchiha Akira couldn't help but grumble about the increased cost of the life simulator. As much as I'm not obsessed with the Mangeki Sharingan, with enough strength, it's just the cherry on top. What's going on with his body? Initially, seeing Uchiha Akira gradually fade away, Itachi had felt quite melancholic. But now, in the blink of an eye, Uchiha Akira's body had completely recovered. Itachi was utterly stunned. He had been lost in his thoughts, yet Akira had suddenly sprung back to full health? How is this possible? Wasn't he about to die? And now he's full of energy. Obito, too, was dumbfounded, watching Akira's body instantly heal and seeing him get back on his feet, fully revived. Guy, what's going on? Kakashi was also shocked, turning to Might Guy in disbelief. I don't know either. The Death Gate of the 8 Gates grants power beyond Akage's, but it also ensures death. I have no idea what's happening with Akira. Might Guy was even more baffled. He had expected Akira to succumb to the backlash of the 8 Gates, yet here he was, fully restored in the blink of an eye, as lively as ever. This turn of events had completely shattered Guy's worldview. Wait a minute, did he just use Izanagi? But it doesn't seem like it. Even the old man and clan leader Fugaku were stunned by Akira's sudden recovery, their faces filled with disbelief. The ability of Izanagi was to turn any unfavorable outcome into a mere dream. So, if Akira had used Izanagi, his near-death state should have been turned into a dream, leaving behind a perfectly healthy Akira. But the way he was almost dead and then instantly restored didn't match how Izanagi should work at all. At that moment, everyone was left in shock and bewilderment by Akira's situation. Those who understood the 8 Gates knew it was a life-risking technique that granted immense power but guaranteed death. Yet Uchiha Akira's condition had completely defied everyone's understanding of the natural order. Wait, something's not right with my body. Though everyone was astounded by his sudden recovery, Uchiha Akira realized that something was off completely different from what he had anticipated. As his chakra was replenished and his injuries healed, the blood-red steam that had originally dissipated began to rise from his body again. What did this mean? It meant that the Death Gate of the 8 Gates was still open. So, even though he intended to exploit a bug in the life simulator to restore his chakra and injuries and bypass the 8 Gates' lethal consequences, it had no effect? On closer inspection, it made sense. Firstly, the Death Gate was different from the other gates. Once opened, it couldn't be closed. After all, anyone who opened the Death Gate was prepared to give up their life, so there was no concept of closing it again. Otherwise, if one could just open and close it at will, there would be no fatal consequences, right? It was like setting yourself on fire unless the flames burned you to ashes, they wouldn't go out. And what about his instant recovery of all injuries and chakra? It was like a piece of wood that was almost entirely burned up, nearly extinguished, but then another log was thrown onto the fire to keep it burning. Naturally, the new wood would also catch fire. In game terms, the backlash from the 8 Gates was like a continuous, health-draining poison effect. But at just the right moment, you level up, restoring full health and energy. However, this didn't mean that the poisoning effect disappeared. The end result would still be death, only now delayed a bit longer. He had thought he could exploit a glitch, but he had overlooked the fact that once the Death Gate was opened, it couldn't be closed unless he died. This was something he hadn't anticipated in advance. Chapter 90, Izanagi, the third pair of Manjiki appears? The life simulator instantly restored all of Uchiha Akira's chakra and healed his injuries. He had originally intended to combine this with the 8th gate to exploit a loophole. However, what he didn't expect was that once the 8th gate was opened, it could only be closed upon death. This was something Akira hadn't foreseen. Seeing himself still in the 8th gate state, with an overwhelming aura, his body enveloped in a red steam of blood, Akira felt like crying. The 8th gate was indeed powerful, but watching his own blood boil, evaporate, and his body carbonize and wither was an excruciating pain, akin to burning himself alive. The simulator's restoration forced him to endure this agony all over again, which nearly brought him to tears. But since things had come to this, he had to maximize the power of the 8th gate. Suppressing the pain, Uchiha Akira's eyes scanned the area, once again searching for Uchiha Obito. This time, with his injuries fully healed, he hoped he could finally finish Obito off. However, after carefully scanning the surroundings, he couldn't find Obito anywhere. This left Akira feeling frustrated. It seemed his miraculous recovery had scared Obito off. At that moment, Obito was indeed using an earth release technique to escape from Konoha village, taking advantage of the distraction caused by Akira's sudden recovery. He was still shaken. After using such a forbidden technique like the 8 gates, how could someone survive? What secrets did Uchiha Akira hold? Clearly, Obito would need to pay much closer attention to Akira in the future. As for discovering his secrets, Obito resolved to investigate further but decided to avoid direct contact with Akira until he had more information. Even though opening the 8th gate was supposed to be a death sentence, Obito couldn't be certain that Akira would actually die this time. Back in the Uchiha district, Uchiha Akira had become a hero to the entire clan. Every Uchiha stared at Akira with fanatical eyes. Although Akira was only 7 years old, he had executed a successful assassination plan, killing both Shimura Danzo and the 3rd Hokage. To the Uchiha clan, Uchiha Akira was now undoubtedly a hero. As Akira's gaze swept over the surrounding Konoha shinobi, each one lowered their head in submission. At this moment, with the 8th gate still open, Akira resembled the legendary Uchiha Madara, capable of dominating everyone. Suddenly, Akira's body collapsed to the ground, once again succumbing to the backlash of the 8th gate. This time, everyone silently watched without saying a word. He had nearly died once, only to suddenly become lively again. Would he recover this time as well? Originally, watching Akira approach death was a heavy moment. But now, with the Uchiha holding on to hope, the atmosphere didn't feel as heavy. And so, under the watchful eyes of everyone, Uchiha Akira's body gradually turned into a charred husk, his life force weakening until it finally vanished entirely. Naturally, Uchiha Akira had died. Dead? He's really dead. The Uchiha were shocked to see Akira die like this. Then, the mood became somber again. Many Uchiha even began to weep softly. The strongest genius of the Uchiha clan had ultimately sacrificed himself for the clan, hadn't he? And he was just a 7-year-old child. Gah, gah. But just as the atmosphere grew unbearably heavy, a crow suddenly appeared out of thin air, landing on Akira's charred chest. This crow had a pair of Manjiki Sharingan with the four-cornered windmill pattern in its eyes. A Manjiki? This crow actually has a pair of Manjiki Sharingan. Seeing the crow that appeared out of nowhere and the pair of Manjiki Sharingan in its eyes, countless people exclaimed in astonishment. A Manjiki Sharingan, it was a legendary power within the Uchiha clan. First, the clan leader Fugaku awakened the Manjiki, then Uchiha Itachi gained his own, which was already shocking enough. And now, another pair of Manjiki Sharingan had appeared? When did the Manjiki Sharingan become so common, like Super Saiyans in the Dragon Ball world? Originally a legendary existence, but now they seem to be popping up everywhere, just like when Super Saiyans became commonplace. Is that Shisui's Manjiki? A pair of Manjiki has been reunited? It seems that the Sharingan taken by Danzo has indeed been reclaimed by Akira. Seeing the four-cornered windmill pattern in the crow's eyes, Itachi immediately recognized them as Shisui's Manjiki. At the same time, he knew that Danzo must be dead. Otherwise, Shisui's eye wouldn't have fallen into Akira's hands. Just as everyone was staring at the crow that had appeared out of nowhere, marveling at its Manjiki Sharingan, something surprising happened. The crow's left eye suddenly went blind, slowly closing shut. At the same time, Uchiha Akira's charred body on the ground vanished like an illusion. Seeing this, the elders and Fugaku realized that Izanagi had been activated. But using a Mangeki Sharingan to perform Izanagi? That was an extravagant choice, to say the least. However, considering Akira's options, other than someone else's Mangeki, he only had his own 3 Tomo Sharingan. Even though the Mangeki was of higher quality, ultimately, one's own eyes are the most important, right? Thus, with the preset transfer seal using the Mangeki Sharingan to activate Izanagi, while the elders felt it was a shame, they could still accept it. As Akira's body disappeared, just like a mirage, another Uchiha Akira appeared out of thin air before everyone's eyes, looking as healthy and unscathed as ever. So, in the end, Izanagi is the only way to exploit the 8 gates loophole. After reviving, Akira glanced at the crow's now closed Sharingan and sighed inwardly. If the life simulator alone could have allowed him to bypass the 8 gates death toll, he might have made the technique a regular part of his arsenal. But now, it seemed that unless he was truly at death's door, the 8th gate was something he should never open again. Revived? He didn't die. Even as Akira silently reflected on the 8 gates limitations, the Uchiha clan members were dumbstruck by his revival. Those who had been weeping moments before stopped in their tracks, staring at Akira in shock, feeling utterly perplexed. At first, they thought he was dead and mourned him. But then he suddenly healed, and they rejoiced. Then he died again, and they grieved once more, only to have him revive yet again. Was he playing with them? Was this some kind of life and death dance? The Uchiha clan members didn't know what expression to wear as they faced the revived Akira. Meanwhile, the other shinobi in the clan grounds were even more stunned to see Akira truly come back to life. This was the power of the Uchiha? Not only could he open the 8 gates and kill the 3rd Hokage, but he could also avoid the inevitable death that comes with it. How was this even possible? So, opening the 8 gates doesn't necessarily mean death. Might Guy muttered in disbelief, feeling as if his entire worldview was collapsing. This situation is difficult to replicate. Just now, one of the Mangeki Sharingan closed. It must be some kind of eye technique with a significant cost, Kakashi observed more keenly than Might Guy, quietly explaining the situation. So the Uchiha's Mangeki really is powerful. It can even bring someone back from the dead. Despite understanding that the revival came at a steep price, Might Guy remained in awe. After all, this was a resurrection technique. Wasn't a heavy cost only to be expected. Similarly, the other Konoha shinobi also realized that the 8 gates death toll had indeed taken effect. Akira had died. But the Uchiha's ability to resurrect him had been displayed before their very eyes. This left the Konoha shinobi even more shocked. Was this truly the power of the Uchiha clan? Could they even bring the dead back to life? The power of the Uchiha, this is the power of the Sharingan, what a magnificent power! Hidden in the shadows, Orochimaru, who had also witnessed this revival, trembled with excitement. He extended his long tongue and licked his lips, his entire body quivering with delight. What was Orochimaru's greatest obsession? The Sharingan? In truth, his deepest desire was immortality. He had already been fascinated by the power of the Sharingan, now, seeing it resurrect someone from the dead, Orochimaru's excitement knew no bounds. His obsession and passion for the Sharingan intensified even further. Meanwhile, the Anbu and Root shinobi, who had yet to disperse, whispered among themselves after seeing Akira's resurrection, inquiring about the situation of Danzo and the 3rd Hokage from the ninjas who had arrived later. Finally, from the mouths of those who had followed, they learned the truth: Danzo and the 3rd Hokage had indeed been killed by Uchiha Akira. Chapter 91, Itachi, Akira, Shisui would be proud of you. That night, the Uchiha clan and indeed, the entire village of Konoha was destined to remain sleepless. Countless shinobi lost their lives that night, including members of the Anbu, the Root division, and even the Uchiha clan itself. On that night, the 3rd Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, also met his end. By the time dawn broke the next morning, the villagers of Konoha realized that the world had changed. The 3rd Hokage had been killed. After taking some time to regroup, the bodies of the fallen shinobi were handed over to their respective families for burial. As for Itachi Uchiha, the son of the Uchiha clan leader, he was imprisoned in the Uchiha's dungeon for betraying the clan. Fugaku Uchiha, the clan leader, had not slept at all that night. After handling all these matters, Fugaku sent out messages to the leaders of other prominent clans in Konoha, including the Hyuga, Abarame and Inyazuka clans, inviting them to a meeting at the Hokage's office. With the 3rd Hokage dead, the most pressing issue now was to quickly decide on the 5th Hokage before news of Konoha's internal strife spread. There was still an hour left before the meeting, but Uchiha Akira did not rush to accompany his grandfather and the clan leader Fugaku to the gathering. Instead, he replayed the events of the previous night in his mind, considering what he had gained and what he had revealed. The most significant gain was, of course, the successful elimination of Konoha's higher UPS, which had allowed the Uchiha to avoid the massacre that was originally destined to happen. However, the night had also exposed some of Akira's abilities, such as the 8 gates, Izanagi, and his overall strength. Additionally, the existence of Uchiha Obito had been intentionally brought to light. No longer lurking in the shadows like a hidden puppet master, Obito's presence marked by his distinctive spiral mask was now known to many shinobi in Konoha. "Master Akira, young Master Sasuke is looking for you," said Keiko, who had been busy all night, knowing there would be no rest today. She approached Uchiha Akira with the message. "Let him in." Uchiha Akira sighed internally at Keiko's words. He already knew why Sasuke was coming to see him. "Akira, Itachi has been imprisoned in the clan's dungeon. Please, you have to save him." Sasuke's first words as he approached Akira were a plea for help. "Why don't you ask your father? He's the clan leader," Akira asked. "I did, but he refused to budge," Sasuke admitted. As the clan leader, he must set an example. Last night, Itachi had openly sided with Konoha and even struck down members of his own clan. Given such a crime, Fugaku, as the clan leader, could only uphold justice, even if it meant condemning his own grandson. If he were to show favoritism and release Itachi, he would not only risk his position as clan leader but would also face the wrath of the entire Uchiha clan. "If your father couldn't do it, what makes you think I can?" Akira asked, looking at Sasuke. "You can. Everyone in the Uchiha clan is calling you a hero now, the one who saved our clan. If you're willing to help, you can do it." Sasuke insisted, even though he knew he was asking a lot. It was clear that Sasuke had no other options and had come to Akira out of desperation. Reflecting on the time Sasuke had shared half of his 200 ryo with him, which had led Akira to discover his life simulation ability, Akira couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude. Of course, the main reason was that Akira had no intention of letting Itachi die. After all, a living Itachi could still be of great use. "Alright, I'll give it a try," Akira finally agreed after some thought. Whether for personal or practical reasons, he had no plans to see Itachi killed. "Thank you so much, Akira." "Thank you." Sasuke was deeply moved. He knew how difficult it was to ask Akira to do something his own father had refused to do, but seeing Akira agree gave him a glimmer of hope. As he glanced at the time, Akira realized there was only about an hour left before the Uchiha and the other clan leaders were to meet and discuss the Hokage position. As the executor of the decapitation plan, he had to be there. Time was tight. Originally, he had planned to wait until the Hokage issue was resolved before dealing with Itachi. But since he had promised Sasuke, Akira stood up to leave. "Master, breakfast is ready," Keiko called out as she saw Akira heading out. After opening the 8 gates and staying up all night, Akira hadn't eaten anything yet. "I have something to take care of. I'll be back within the hour," Akira replied, grabbing a few rice balls from the table before heading out with Sasuke. As they left, Akira handed one of the rice balls to Sasuke and said, "Go wait for me in the small forest outside the clan grounds. If I manage to get Itachi out, I'll send him to find you." Sasuke nodded firmly, took the rice ball, and the two went their separate ways. The Uchiha prison wasn't large, designed only to hold criminals within the clan. Originally, Itachi's status had soared after awakening the Mangekyo Sharingan, but his actions against the clan members the previous night had turned him into a criminal in the eyes of the Uchiha. The higher his previous status, the more severe the clan's condemnation. Itachi was now bound with chains imbued with sealing power, guarded by 2 elite clan members at the entrance. "Master Akira." The guards immediately saluted when they saw Uchiha Akira approaching, knowing that while Itachi was restricted, Akira had risen to hero status within the clan. Although only 7 years old, Akira's reputation in the clan was now on par with that of Fugaku, who possessed the Mangekyo Sharingan. Without saying a word, Akira glanced at the 2 guards, and the 3 Tomo Sharingan in his eyes spun into view. Instantly, the 2 elite guards rolled their eyes and collapsed, unconscious. Though both guards also had the 3 Tomo Sharingan, their strength was merely at the level of Jonin, while Akira had already reached Kage level. With his expertise in ninjutsu and genjutsu honed through countless simulations, the guards had no chance. With ease, Akira opened the door and entered the prison. Inside, Itachi sat calmly, showing no signs of fear or distress despite being a prisoner. "You're here," Itachi said evenly as he saw Akira enter. "Want one?" Akira offered, raising the last rice ball in his left hand after having nearly finished the one in his right. "I can't exactly take it with my hands tied like this," Itachi replied, nodding toward the chains binding him. Akira nodded back, shoved the remaining half of his rice ball into his mouth, and then approached Itachi. Grasping the chains, he gave them a firm tug. The chains were taut, but they held firm. Undeterred, Akira continued to release more power, opening the 6th gate of the 8 gates. Finally, the chains, unable to withstand his strength, snapped. "Not bad, these chains were pretty strong to hold someone with the Mangekyo Sharingan," Akira remarked as he offered the last rice ball to Itachi. Itachi looked at Akira in surprise, not having expected him to simply break the chains through sheer force. Without hesitation, he took the rice ball and asked, "Aren't you afraid I'll find a way to escape?" "Go ahead. I came here to release you, after all," Akira replied casually. "Release me? Why?" Itachi was even more perplexed. Despite betraying the Uchiha, killing members of his clan, and holding opposing ideals to Akira, he was being set free? "I had no choice. Suzuki came to me, begging me to save you. I don't have many friends in the clan. Suzuki is one of them. It was the first favor he asked of me, so I couldn't just refuse," Akira explained nonchalantly. "Suzuki," Itachi murmured, a tender look crossing his face. Suzuki had gone to Akira for help, all to save him. "But even if Suzuki asked, that can't be the only reason you're releasing me, right?" Itachi asked, regaining his composure and looking at Akira with determination. "You're right. Even without his request, I had already planned to let you go," Akira admitted candidly. Although he had foreknowledge of events, Akira knew that in terms of intellect, he was no match for Itachi. There was no point in hiding the truth. "Last night, the man with the spiral-patterned mask, you know who he is, don't you?" Akira asked. "Don't look so surprised." "I know him too," Akira added. "He claims to be Madara Uchiha, but he's not. You don't need to worry about that. But make no mistake, he will be a source of chaos for Konoha, and perhaps even the entire shinobi world," Akira continued. "So, I want you to leave the village as a rogue ninja and keep an eye on him." Akira knew that the Akatsuki organization would still pose the greatest threat in the future. With the Uchiha coup now a success, Itachi no longer had a place in Konoha. Sending him to monitor the Akatsuki, as in the original story, seemed like the best course of action. And Akira was certain that for the sake of Konoha and the peace of the shinobi world, Itachi would not refuse. "All right," Itachi agreed without hesitation. He knew that the man who claimed to be Madara Uchiha was a dangerous element, and he quickly made up his mind. After finishing the rice ball, Itachi left. "By the way, make sure to say goodbye to Suzuki in the small forest near the clan grounds. He's waiting for you," Akira called out as Itachi walked away. Itachi paused for a moment, then continued walking. "Akira, although our ideals differ, you've done well. You're better than I am. I'm sure Shisui would be proud of you," Itachi's voice echoed as he disappeared into the distance. Chapter 92, The Origin of the Title of Hokage and the Name of Konoha Village. Itachi's body flicker technique was executed with incredible speed. All along, Itachi had always given the impression of being a serious and unsmiling individual. However, after betraying the Uchiha clan today, he knew he would become a missing nin from Konoha in the future. Yet, a smile unexpectedly appeared on Itachi's face, and he even felt a sense of relief, as if a heavy burden had finally been lifted from his shoulders. For a long time, Itachi had been caught between the Uchiha clan and the village, feeling truly torn. But now, the conflict between the village and the Uchiha clan had been completely resolved. Although Akira's ideology was completely different from his own, the fact that only Denzo and the third Hokage had to be sacrificed to completely eliminate the conflict between the Uchiha and Konoha was astounding to Itachi. In Itachi's eyes, achieving such a result seemed almost impossible, even more challenging than annihilating the Uchiha clan. However, it was the perfect ending, and Itachi hadn't expected that Akira would actually succeed. Even though he had betrayed the Uchiha and been imprisoned, Itachi found himself content, knowing he had witnessed such an almost perfect outcome. Even if he were to be executed, he would die with a smile. But now, Akira had asked him to continue working for the sake of the Uchiha, the village, and even the peace of the entire shinobi world by monitoring the actions of the masked man. Itachi Uchiha felt as though he had found a new purpose in life. Akira, with his ability to foresee the future, had informed him that the masked man would become the root cause of future chaos in the shinobi world. If Akira said so, then Itachi had no doubt about it, and he was more than willing to take on this task. Using his body flicker technique, Itachi left the clan grounds and soon arrived at the small forest at the edge of the clan's territory, where he saw Uchiha Sasuke waiting for him. "Brother, I knew it. Akira really managed to save you." Seeing Itachi appear before him, Sasuke's face lit up with a joyful smile. Seeing Sasuke's expression, a gentle smile appeared on Itachi's face as well. He beckoned Sasuke closer, then lightly flicked Sasuke's forehead with his finger. "Sasuke, forgive me, but I've come to say goodbye." Itachi left, walking away peacefully. Of course, by left, it meant he departed from Konoha village, not that he had died. Sasuke watched Itachi's departing figure, wanting several times to ask him to stay, but the words just wouldn't come out. Though only 7 years old, Sasuke understood that given Itachi's current position, leaving the Uchiha clan in Konoha village was the best choice for him. Otherwise, staying would mean certain death. Watching as Itachi carved the mark of a missing nin into his forehead protector, Sasuke felt as if the knife had cut into his own heart. Staring blankly at Itachi's retreating figure, Uchiha Sasuke's eyes turned a blood-red color. At the same time, a tomo appeared in each of his eyes. This was the awakening of the Sharingan. For now, let's set aside the situations of Itachi and Sasuke. After letting Itachi leave, Uchiha Akira immediately returned home, just in time to see his grandfather, Uchiha Itachi, preparing to head out. The two left together, going to meet with the other elders and clan leaders. Officially, this meeting with the other clans was to elect the 5th Hokage. In reality, the main purpose of this gathering was to announce that the position of 5th Hokage would be taken by a member of the Uchiha clan and to secure the support of the other clans. "I heard Sasuke came to you to ask for Itachi's rescue," Uchiha Itachi asked as they walked side by side. "Yes, I let Itachi go," Akira replied honestly to his grandfather. Given Akira's current status and position, he indeed had the authority to decide Itachi's fate. Itachi's way of thinking is indeed extreme, but that doesn't necessarily make him evil, Uchiha Itachi nodded, understanding Itachi's actions as being motivated by a desire for peace, and he showed no excessive reaction. "It's just a shame that our Uchiha clan's pair of Mangekyo Sharingan will now be lost to the wider shinobi world," Uchiha Itachi sighed quietly. For him, the greater regret was not Itachi's life or death, but that such powerful eyes would be lost outside the Uchiha clan. After all, the Mangekyo Sharingan is the pride and face of the Uchiha clan. Lost Mangekyo Sharingan outside the clan? There's more than just one pair out there. Akira thought silently to himself, seeing his grandfather's regret. But he had no intention of saying this out loud. "By the way, where do you think Itachi will go now?" Uchiha Itachi asked after a moment of reflection. Just as Akira was about to answer, he noticed that clan leader Fugaku was approaching with several other elders. With all the key members of the Uchiha clan gathered, they headed towards the Hokage building. By this time, many of the notable figures of Konoha had already assembled at the Hokage building. These included the Hyuga clan leader, the Inyazuka clan leader, the leaders of the Inoshikacho trio, the captain of the Anbu, elite members of the Root organization, and elite jonin like Kakashi and Might Guy, representing the village's ordinary shinobi. Looking around, there were dozens of people present. As for the original advisors, Homura Mitokado and Koharu Udaten, they hadn't been invited to the meeting, and wisely, they didn't show up uninvited. In the original story, after the deaths of the 3rd Hokage and Danzo, Tsunade took over, and those two old advisors immediately began throwing their weight around, acting as if they were in charge. But now, with the Uchiha clan having killed Danzo and the 3rd Hokage and seized power, those two, who were known for picking on the weak, wouldn't dare step out of line. Realizing that their time had passed, they wisely refrained from doing anything foolish. With Uchiha Akira and the others present, the ninja began to discuss the issue of the Hokage's succession. The coup had been led by the Uchiha clan, and the Uchiha's power was now the strongest in Konoha. With Fugaku's Mangekyo Sharingan and, most importantly, Akira's survival after opening the 8 gates, no one in Konoha could compete with the Uchiha for the Hokage position. Of course, while no one could challenge them, securing the Uchiha succession to the Hokage title required negotiating certain benefits with the other clans. Despite his invincibility in battle when opening the 8 gates, Akira found himself growing drowsy during the endless political discussions. He sat quietly on the side, not intending to intervene. It was just the usual exchange of favors, dividing one piece of land here, handing over control of a business district there to gain the support of the other clans for the Uchiha's claim to the Hokage seat. Akira, it seems you don't enjoy these kinds of situations, a voice said quietly. In the midst of the clan leaders' negotiations with Fugaku, while Akira was nearly dozing off, Might Guy had somehow found his way to Akira's side and spoke to him in a low voice. Do you enjoy them? Akira asked in return, glancing at Guy. Although the two had clashed the previous night, forcing Akira to open the 8th gate, it was merely due to differing loyalties. Now that the 3rd Hokage was dead, there was no reason for them to be at odds. Guy chuckled, and with his straightforward nature, it was clear that he didn't enjoy such situations either. I never imagined that the Uchiha would produce a Hokage, Guy said, somewhat wistfully. Over the years, the Uchiha clan's members had been known for their arrogance, which hadn't made them particularly popular with the villagers of Konoha, a fact that even Guy was aware of. Actually, the position of first Hokage should have belonged to our Uchiha clan in the first place, but unfortunately. Akira began, but his words trailed off with a resigned shake of his head. What? The first Hokage was supposed to be an Uchiha. Guy looked at Akira in surprise. Clearly, this statement caught him off guard. The idea that the first Hokage, widely known to be Hashirama Senju, could have been an Uchiha was hard to believe. Do you know that Hashirama Senju and Madara Uchiha ended the Warring States period by founding Konoha village, marking the start of the shinobi village era? Akira continued, realizing he might as well share some lesser-known history with Guy instead of dozing off. Of course, that's taught in the Ninja Academy textbooks. Guy nodded, understanding. And what was Hashirama Senju's most famous ability? Akira asked. Would release, Guy replied. Exactly, and what was Madara Uchiha's most famous ability? Or rather, what is the Uchiha clan's signature ability? Akira pressed on. The Sharingan. Guy responded, somewhat uncertain. And what about the Uchiha who haven't awakened their Sharingan? Akira asked. Oh, that would be fire release, right? The Uchiha clan's emblem is shaped like a fan used to control fire. Guy, prompted by Akira, finally gave the correct answer. That's right. So back then, Madara Uchiha and Hashirama Senju made a pact, Akira began to explain. The village's name, Konoha, was chosen by Madara Uchiha to reflect Hashirama Senju's mastery of wood release, Akira continued. And the title of Hokage, given to the village leader by Hashirama Senju, was meant to honor Madara's mastery of fire release. So, the original agreement was that the first Hokage should have been Madara Uchiha, to reflect this balance between them. But unfortunately, Akira trailed off, shaking his head with a sigh. Unfortunately, ever since Indra, the character was designed to be powerful but hard to approach, and Madara Uchiha, as Indra's reincarnation, was no different. As for Ashura, he was designed to be someone who could easily get along with others, and Hashirama Senju, as Ashura's reincarnation, was no exception. So when it came time to choose the first Hokage, almost everyone in the newly formed Konoha village agreed that Hashirama Senju was the best candidate. Moreover, Hashirama's strength slightly exceeded Madara's, albeit by a small margin. Of course, Akira wasn't lamenting Madara Uchiha's loss of the Hokage title. What he regretted was that this situation ultimately led to Madara's departure from Konoha, which in turn set off the chain of events that would lead to Obito's corruption, the Moon's Eye plan, and everything else that followed. Chapter 93, Akira, who else but you could be the head of Konoha's Anbu? So that's how the name of Konoha village and the title of Hokage came to be. After a quiet conversation with Uchiha Akira, Might Guy's face showed a look of surprise, followed by a sudden realization. Indeed, the village was called Konoha, and its leader was called the Hokage. It had always been this way. But why were they called that? Might Guy had never really thought about it. Today, after hearing Uchiha Akira's explanation, Might Guy finally understood. More importantly, Uchiha Akira's words made perfect sense. Konoha village was founded by Madara Uchiha and Hashirama Senju, who ended the Warring States period. So, based on Hashirama's wood release, the village was named Konoha, Leaf Village. And based on the Uchiha's fire release, the village leader was given the title of Hokage, Fire Shadow, which was indeed logical. But why has this explanation never been popularized in the village? And why hasn't it even been mentioned in the teachings at the Ninja Academy? After realizing this, Might Guy's face showed a look of confusion. Indeed, there were history books in the Ninja Academy that recorded events from the Warring States period and the founding of Konoha village. Logically, since this concerns the origins of Konoha, it should be recorded in the history books. Hat. Uchiha Akira chuckled with a mocking expression when he heard Might Guy's question. Might Guy didn't quite understand what this meant. Akira, that head of yours sounds like you're cursing someone. Might Guy said with a bit of unease. That's right, I am cursing someone, Uchiha Akira nodded frankly. Might Guy. Of course, I'm not cursing you. I'm cursing the previous Konoha leadership. I just didn't expect your instincts to be so dull, Guy-sensei. Think about it. Who founded Konoha village? The Senju and Uchiha clans. But the Senju clan has long been gone, and the Uchiha clan was nearly wiped out last night. As the two founding and most powerful clans of Konoha, they almost ceased to exist. Do you really think that's a coincidence? Uchiha Akira posed a soul-searching question to Might Guy. Hiss. In truth, Might Guy's instincts weren't the sharpest. But after Uchiha Akira's prompting, if Guy still couldn't see the oddities in these events, it wouldn't be a matter of instinct but rather intelligence. Yes, as the founders of Konoha, the Senju clan had vanished, and the Uchiha clan had nearly been destroyed last night. This situation was indeed terrifying when thought through carefully. Uchiha Akira and Might Guy continued their low-voiced conversation. In the meeting room, many people were casting curious glances at them. It was no secret that Uchiha Akira and Might Guy had some personal rapport. Otherwise, where would Uchiha Akira have learned the 8 gates technique? But last night, in an effort to protect the third Hokage, Might Guy opened the 7th gate and fought against Uchiha Akira's 7th gate, holding him back. This was witnessed by everyone present. Had it not been for Might Guy, Uchiha Akira, in his 7th gate state, would have crushed everything without being forced to open the 8th gate. People initially thought that the two would have turned against each other after this. But here they were today, in the meeting room, quietly chatting without a hint of enmity. After some thought, everyone understood what was going on. Uchiha Akira hadn't held a grudge against Might Guy. And this made many people secretly admire Akira. Uchiha Akira's capacity and magnanimity were truly beyond what a 7-year-old child should have. Not holding a grudge against Might Guy despite his full-force resistance last night because of differing loyalties? Is this really the kind of forbearance a 7-year-old should possess? After about 3 hours of back-and-forth discussions regarding Konoha's distribution of interests, Uchiha and the various clans finally reached a mutually agreeable balance. Of course, Uchiha also discussed with Might Guy and Kakashi, representing the civilian shinobi, and the Anbu and Root factions, reaching a satisfactory conclusion. As they say, a new ruler brings a new order. With Danzo dead and the third Hokage gone, Uchiha's coup had succeeded. Aside from a few individuals who were personally loyal to Danzo and the third Hokage, there wasn't much resistance to Uchiha taking over the position of Hokage. Just like a new Lion King taking over from the old, once the coup succeeded, the new Hokage position wasn't met with significant opposition. Most shinobi's loyalty was to Konoha, not to the third Hokage as an individual. Just like in ancient times when a prince successfully rebelled, how many people were willing to die with the fallen emperor? Of course, if the rebellion were by outsiders, it would be different. But the Uchiha clan was not considered outsiders to Konoha. In essence, without the Senju clan, the Uchiha clan was Konoha's true, rightful founders. After matters were settled, preparations for the new Hokage's inauguration began, and the villagers of Konoha were informed. A document was also sent to the daimyo of the Land of Fire, requesting an official decree to appoint the new Hokage, ensuring all procedures were followed. The round trip to the daimyo's court would take at least half a month. During this time, as the head of the Uchiha clan, Uchiha Fugaku assumed the role of acting Hokage. With everything agreed upon, the Uchiha group returned to their clan grounds. Next, it was time to address the personnel changes needed after Uchiha secured the Hokage position. First, the roles of elders Homura Mitokado and Koharu Udaten were not immediately revoked. However, the position of Hokage advisor, previously held by Danzo, was given to the Uchiha elder. Additionally, Hyuga Hayashi, the head of the Hyuga clan, was appointed as another advisor to Konoha. As for Uchiha Akira, He was to take over as the head of Konoha's Anbu. Kakashi was designated as the deputy head, becoming Uchiha Akira's subordinate. Of course, these were just initial plans and had not been officially appointed yet. The role Uchiha Akira played in this coup was evident to everyone. His strength was witnessed by the entire village. Whether it was his prestige or power, taking over as the head of the Anbu was widely accepted without any opposition. If it weren't for his young age, just 7 years old, he might have even been a contender for the Hokage position alongside Fugaku. Still, many in Uchiha and the wider Konoha believed that if Fugaku became the 5th Hokage, Uchiha Akira would likely be the 6th Hokage. Clan leader, I don't think the position of Anbu head suits me, Uchiha Akira said as he heard he was being considered for the role. Oh? Then what are your thoughts? Fugaku asked, seeing that Uchiha Akira seemed reluctant to take on the role of Anbu head. I think I'd be better suited to managing Konoha's finances, Uchiha Akira replied with a smile. Running the finances of all of Konoha? That's a lot of money. With that much money passing through his hands, even if a bit fell through his fingers, it would be more than enough to live comfortably. Having the strength of a cage was certainly nice. But the life simulations now cost 1 million ryo per simulation. The life simulations had become a bottomless pit for money. Uchiha Akira's words caused the Uchiha elders to exchange strange looks. He was turning down the position of Anbu head to manage Konoha's finances? It was well known that Uchiha Akira had many virtues, but a love of money was also among them. And now, it seemed that reputation was well founded. Clan leader, bad news. Before Fugaku could refuse, a Uchiha elite rushed in with a look of urgency. What is it? Fugaku asked calmly, already guessing the reason but feigning ignorance. Uchiha Itachi has escaped. The clan member reported urgently. This news caused the faces of all the Uchiha elders in the meeting room to change. They immediately turned suspicious gazes toward Fugaku. Though he was the clan leader, if he had indeed sheltered Itachi, the other clan members wouldn't accept it. And Fugaku was the most likely suspect, having the ability and motive to help Itachi escape. Impossible. Fugaku shook his head resolutely. Those sealing chains Itachi couldn't have escaped on his own. Someone must have helped him. Seeing Fugaku's firm stance and his suggestion that someone assisted Itachi, the elders began to reconsider. Could it be that Fugaku wasn't involved? It was. Young Master Akira. Seeing the other elders' reactions, the clan member hesitated but eventually spoke, glancing at Uchiha Akira. Russell. All eyes in the room turned to Uchiha Akira. That's right, it was me, Uchiha Akira admitted without hesitation. Why? Fugaku asked. Although Uchiha Akira was now seen as a hero of the Uchiha clan, he had released Itachi on his own? There needed to be a good reason. Uchiha Akira explained that the masked man from last night was mysterious and powerful, so he had decided to allow Itachi to atone by becoming a rogue ninja and investigating the masked man. Hearing this explanation, the Uchiha elders' expressions softened. This reasoning was acceptable. For the sake of Konoha's peace, Uchiha Itachi had even raised a blade against his own clan members. No one doubted that he would take on the task of watching the masked man as a rogue ninja. Well done. This is a clever strategy, using Itachi's talents to their fullest. So, who else but you could be the head of Konoha's Anbu? Fugaku nodded in satisfaction, approving of Uchiha Akira's handling of the situation and affirming his decision for the role. Chapter 94, A Reckoning of the Third Hokage's 7 Deadly Sins. No matter how noble Uchiha Itachi's ideals may have been, he betrayed the Uchiha clan and even killed many of its members. That alone is unforgivable. Had he remained within the Uchiha territory, his inevitable fate would have been execution on the spot. So, making a man who was doomed to die serve one last purpose by striving for the peace of the village, was that really a win-win situation? No, that description doesn't quite fit. Perhaps the term waste utilization is more accurate? Of course, as Itachi's father, Fugaku could never bring himself to use such a term, and Uchiha Akira understood that. But after I went out of my way to save your son, you should be grateful. Instead, you force me into the position of Anbu commander? Sure, it's a position of real power, second only to the Hokage, but still, Uchiha Akira would much rather have the position of finance minister. Yes, apart from young Master Akira, who else could possibly be qualified for this role? I think the Hokage's decision is very appropriate. Wait a minute, isn't our clan leader still just the acting Hokage? Isn't it a bit premature to call him Hokage now? So what? Are you saying the daimyo won't issue the Hokage's appointment to our clan leader? If that's really the case, then maybe it's time Fire Country found a new daimyo. Upon hearing this, Uchiha Akira silently rolled his eyes. Alright, it seems like this position of Anbyo commander is something the clan really wants me to take, and I have no way to refuse. But, Uchiha truly remains Uchiha. Forcing the daimyo to issue an appointment decree is just a formality. It's like Napoleon getting the French Senate to recognize him as emperor, or how Henry VIII had Parliament declare him as the supreme head of the Church of England. There's no room for surprises. If by some chance there were, the Uchiha would likely demand the Fire Country change its daimyo. Yeah, that's definitely the Uchiha way. Clan leader, you're not just the leader of the Uchiha anymore, you're also the Hokage of the village. I think it's time for the Uchiha to change the way we interact with the villagers. Back in the early days, the title of Hokage was originally meant for an Uchiha. But in the end, the first Hokage was Senju Hashirama, not Uchiha Madara. A large part of that was due to the Uchiha's arrogance, which made the villagers feel the Uchiha were hard to get along with. Now that we've taken the Hokage's seat, it's best to change that perception. Uchiha Akira spoke, taking advantage of the presence of the Uchiha leadership to lay out the situation. The other Uchiha leaders, hearing Akira speak about the clan's arrogance and the estrangement from the villagers, were well aware of the issue. Indeed, the title of Hokage was originally intended for the Uchiha. But to this day, there hasn't been a single Uchiha among the 4 Hokage, which is indeed a disgrace to the clan. Now that Akira has brought this up, the Uchiha leaders nodded in agreement. So, Akira, do you have any suggestions on how our clan members should interact with the villagers? Fugaku asked, turning directly to Uchiha Akira. Since he brought up the issue, Fugaku wanted to hear his thoughts on the matter. Naturally, beyond just assessing Akira's power, Fugaku also wanted to gauge his ability to handle matters as a leader. Well, the third Hokage's public persona was actually quite admirable. His image of being just, upright, and approachable created a perception of him being down to earth. Akira began, offering his perspective. Now, I'm not saying we should imitate the third, but there is something to be said for his will of fire. It's definitely effective. So, we can take the concept of the will of fire, blend it with our Uchiha traits, and create a version of the will of fire that's unique to the Uchiha. Uchiha Akira proposed, sharing his thoughts. In simple terms, isn't this just another form of indoctrination? The third Hokage had his way of brainwashing people, so why can't the Uchiha create their own version? Besides, the Uchiha are now arguably the village's sole founders, giving them a natural advantage that others lack. Not bad, Akira's words make a lot of sense. Yes, our clan is indeed due for some changes. An Uchiha-flavored will of fire? That sounds quite reasonable. I'm in favor. As Uchiha Akira finished speaking, the Uchiha leadership expressed their support, agreeing with Akira's idea. Although they had no particular fondness for the third Hokage, they had to admit that the will of fire was a pretty effective concept. Especially when it came to the children at the Ninja Academy, the impact was even greater. Case in point, look at how deeply Uchiha Itachi was influenced. With that, the Uchiha leaders began a lively discussion on how to implement a Uchiha-specific will of fire. Brainwashing tactics. Establishing a righteous image for the Uchiha. The clan would undergo changes, and this new ideology would be a part of it. After a lively discussion that lasted over an hour, the idea of an Uchiha-specific will of fire began to take shape. They also discussed how to implement it and how the clan members should change their behavior. What do you think, Akira? Do you have anything to add? Fugaku asked, noticing that Uchiha Akira had remained silent after his initial suggestions. No, the elders have spoken wisely, and I have no objections, Uchiha Akira replied, first acknowledging the contributions of the senior clan members. This response earned Akira more nods of approval from the Uchiha leaders, who appreciated his respectful demeanor. Despite his power and high standing, Akira was neither arrogant nor domineering. In fact, they began to see Uchiha Akira as the best candidate for the next Hokage. And by best, they didn't mean he was just a strong contender, they meant that within the entire Uchiha clan, there was no one else qualified to compete with him for the title of Hokage. However, but just as Akira said this, he added, I think there's something else we need to address. What do you think needs to be added? Tell us, Fugaku urged, with the other leaders turning their attention to Akira once more. So far, Everything Akira had said had been highly constructive. Well, regarding the deaths of Danzo and the third Hokage, I believe we need to make a public statement to the villagers. As I mentioned earlier, the third Hokage's will of fire was quite powerful, and even now, there are probably many villagers and ninja who see us as usurpers. Although no one dares oppose us outright due to our current strength, this sentiment could become a source of unrest in the future, perhaps even sparking future conflicts. So, we need to expose the true, ugly nature of Danzo and the third Hokage for all to see. Uchiha Akira explained, adding his final thoughts. Indeed, in the world from which I came, when a rebellion succeeded, there was always a need to justify the actions by listing the sins of the deposed rulers. That way, it would seem as if the rebellion was an act of divine will. Couldn't they just copy from history? This approach is just as relevant now as it was then. Ah! Yes, that's a very timely addition. Indeed, the third Hokage's will of fire was quite strong, and even now, there are still many civilians and ninja who secretly believe that we Uchiha are evil usurpers. Though no one can stop us from taking the Hokage's seat, these people are indeed an unstable factor. Right, we need to expose the third Hokage's dark side to make it clear that we Uchiha are the heroes who defeated the villains. Akira may only be 7 years old, but his insights are far beyond what we old men can come up with. Elder, your grandson truly is remarkable. With Uchiha Akira's suggestion, the clan leaders began to see the wisdom in his words, one after another voicing their agreement. At the same time, praise for Akira flowed freely, making his grandfather smile so widely that the corners of his mouth nearly reached his ears. As an old man, what's the one thing he loves to hear most? Praise for his grandson, of course. That's even better than being praised directly or hearing compliments about his son. At just 7 years old, Akira had shown the courage and determination to confront the third Hokage on his own. He even possessed the strength to open the 8 gates. And now, he displayed such political acumen and strategic thinking. Up until now, the clan had believed that Shisui and Itachi were the true geniuses of the Uchiha. But now it seemed that Uchiha Akira was even more exceptional, perhaps even perfect. Fugaku carefully considered Akira's suggestion and nodded in agreement. All right, everyone, let's discuss the third Hokage's failings. Where did he go wrong, and how can we completely tarnish his image? With that, Fugaku turned to the Uchiha elders, encouraging them to brainstorm ways to discredit the third Hokage. Clan leader, I've already compiled a list of the third Hokage's 7 deadly sins, enough to completely ruin his reputation. Uchiha Akira said, his voice low and ominous. Chapter 95, The 7th Sin, Uzumaki Naruto's Identity Exposed. Initially, when Uchiha Akira mentioned exposing the dark secrets of the third Hokage, it was clear that once the third's virtuous image was shattered, the Uchiha clan's takeover of Konoha would seem even more justified. As a result, the Uchiha clan's leaders were eager, ready to dig into the third Hokage's dirty secrets. But when Uchiha Akira said that he had already compiled the third Hokage's 7 deadly sins, the entire room fell silent. The Uchiha leaders exchanged looks of surprise, each one staring at Uchiha Akira with a strange expression. Why are you all looking at me like that? Uchiha Akira asked, half amused, half bemused by the looks he was getting from the clan leaders. The third Hokage is truly pitiful, or rather, anyone who opposes you is bound to be the most pitiful. Indeed, not only did you kill the third Hokage, but you're also determined to ruin his reputation even after his death. It seems you had planned for this all along, hadn't you? The Uchiha leaders spoke one after another, offering their condolences for the third Hokage. Yes, if Uchiha Akira had already prepared the 7 deadly sins, it meant he had been planning this for quite some time. First, kill the body, then kill the spirit? If Uchiha Akira were ever to turn against the Uchiha, he would be even more terrifying than Itachi, wouldn't he? You're misunderstanding. I didn't investigate ahead of time. Uchiha Akira quickly denied it, shaking his head. While it was true he had compiled the 7 deadly sins of the third Hokage, he had done so based on his knowledge of the original story, not through any prior investigation. But to the Uchiha leaders, it seemed he had been preparing this for a long time. This boy is truly cunning. Even his grandfather, who stood nearby with a proud look on his face, stroked his beard and nodded approvingly. Nonsense. I'm naturally pure-hearted. Grandpa, how could you say such things about your own grandson? Uchiha Akira protested, turning to his grandfather with a half-serious complaint. Not only did his grandfather fail to clear his name, but he also seemed to take pride in the idea that his grandson was so cunning. Was cunning even meant as a compliment? Alright, Akira, you mentioned the 7 deadly sins of the third Hokage? What exactly are they? Let's hear them, Fugaku, the clan leader, said, waving his hand to dismiss any further argument, turning his attention to Uchiha Akira. The Uchiha leaders all turned serious as they looked at Akira, their eyes full of curiosity. Exposing the dark secrets of the third Hokage? To be honest, the third Hokage had carefully maintained his virtuous image for so many years. Finding any real dirt on him wouldn't be easy. But Akira claimed to have already identified 7 deadly sins. What could they be? After taking a moment to gather his thoughts, Uchiha Akira began. The first sin is that the third Hokage was too weak during his reign. When Hinata Hyuga, the princess of the Hyuga clan, was kidnapped by a ninja from the hidden cloud village, the Hyuga clan leader killed the kidnapper in defense. But instead of holding the cloud village accountable, the third Hokage allowed Hayashi's brother, Hisashi, to die in his place. Similarly, when the fourth Hokage's wife, Uzumaki Kushina, was kidnapped by the cloud village during her childhood, although she was rescued, the third Hokage didn't dare pursue justice. Such a cowardly Hokage deserves to be called the weakest Hokage ever. Yes, that's true, a few of the Uchiha leaders nodded in agreement after exchanging glances. The Hyuga incident wasn't something openly discussed, but the Uchiha leadership was well aware of it. The second sin concerns the land of whirlpools, Uchiha Akira continued. The friendship between the land of whirlpools and Konoha was well known throughout the ninja world. Even our village's headbands and vests bear the Uzumaki swirl as a symbol of that friendship. But when the land of whirlpools was under attack, Konoha deliberately delayed its assistance. As a result, the village was destroyed, but not before Konoha managed to obtain a large collection of top-tier sealing techniques from them. This is a clear case of being skilled at internal affairs but incompetent in external affairs. Once again, the Uchiha leaders exchanged looks, silently nodding in agreement. While it's not certain that the third Hokage intentionally allowed the destruction of the land of whirlpools, the situation was certainly suspicious. And it was during the third Hokage's reign that the land of whirlpools was destroyed, so it's hard to argue he had no responsibility at all. The third sin relates to the Senju clan, Akira went on. The Senju clan, like the Uchiha, was one of the founding clans of Konoha and produced 2 Hokage. But during the third Hokage's reign, the Senju clan's numbers dwindled drastically, ultimately leading to its extinction within the village. If Tsunade, the princess of the Senju clan, hadn't been a personal disciple of the third Hokage, she likely would have met with an untimely end as well. Why did Tsunade leave the village? If the destruction of the land of whirlpools can be attributed to a delay in aid, how does one explain the disappearance of the Senju clan? Akira's words left the room in a heavy silence. Indeed, the Senju clan, once so powerful, had vanished during the third Hokage's tenure. It's hard to think of that as mere coincidence. The fourth sin, Akira continued without hesitation, is the handling of the Nine Tails attack. The clan leader's Mangekyo Sharingan had the power to suppress the Nine Tails, but because of the suspicions of the higher UPS, the Uchiha were forbidden from participating in the battle. As a result, countless ninja died that night, including the fourth Hokage. The casualties caused by the Nine Tails that night were at least half the fault of the third Hokage and his council. Yes, after the Nine Tails attack, the villagers blamed us Uchiha for releasing the beast and for not helping to stop it, when in fact, it was the village's leadership that prevented us from intervening. If the clan leader's Mangekyo Sharingan had been used, the village wouldn't have suffered such heavy losses. The mention of the Nine Tails attack filled the Uchiha leaders with frustration and anger. Akira didn't pause, moving on to the next point. The fifth sin involves one of the 3 legendary Sunin, Orochimaru. He collaborated with Danzo to secretly kidnap Konoha's ninjas and civilians for cruel experiments in forbidden jutsu. Even though the third Hokage had a chance to stop Orochimaru, he let him go because Orochimaru was his favorite student. Such a blatant disregard for duty shows he was unfit to be Hokage. What? The third Hokage let Orochimaru escape on purpose. Danzo and Orochimaru working together, experimenting on villagers and ninja. The third Hokage was clearly mixing personal feelings with his duty. What about the lives of the Hyuga clan members, those innocent ninja and civilians? How could he let Orochimaru go free? The Uchiha leaders were furious upon hearing this. It was hard to believe how much darkness lurked beneath the third Hokage's virtuous facade. Ignoring the outcry from the elders, Akira continued, the sixth sin concerns Konoha's White Fang, Hatake Sakumo. Sakumo was one of the village's strongest shinobi, his fame surpassing even the three Sunin at the time. But the village leadership felt threatened by his power and deliberately stirred public opinion against him, leading to his suicide. Thus, the village lost another of its greatest warriors. Think of how strong Konoha once was, and look at it now. The fourth Hokage and White Fang are dead, the three Sunin have left the village, and now the old guard sits comfortably in power, free from the threat of the next generation. Such jealousy of the talented is the sixth Hokage's sin. Konoha's White Fang. Hearing Akira's words, many of the Uchiha leaders sighed in regret. He had been one of Konoha's greatest shinobi, and even the Uchiha had felt his loss deeply. Now it seemed that the deaths and departures of so many of Konoha's strongest were no coincidence. Finally, Akira revealed the last and most damning sin. The seventh sin is about Uzumaki Naruto. After the Nine Tails attacked, the villagers were filled with hatred. Who is Uzumaki Naruto? He is the son of the fourth Hokage and the vessel that contains the Nine Tails, a hero of Konoha. But the third Hokage falsely spread the idea that Naruto was the incarnation of the Nine Tails, turning the villagers' hatred towards a child. The son of the fourth Hokage, a hero of the village, was made to live a life of scorn and isolation. How could the third Hokage do this to the child of the man who gave his life to protect Konoha? Uchiha Akira revealed Naruto's true identity as the final, devastating blow. This was the ultimate strike. The fact that Naruto, the son of the revered fourth Hokage, had suffered so much due to the third Hokage's deception was the most damning evidence of all. Even now, the fourth Hokage was still highly respected in Konoha. But the more revered the fourth Hokage was, the more tragic Naruto's suffering seemed. And the heavier the burden of guilt on the third Hokage's shoulders became, making it impossible to justify or defend. Chapter 96, The Shinobi World is Shaken, Another Uchiha Madara in the Making? Akira, what did you say? Uzumaki Naruto is the fourth Hokage's son. With the revelation of the seventh sin, Uchiha Akira exposed Uzumaki Naruto's true identity, leaving the entire Uchiha leadership in stunned silence. The Uchiha leaders were well aware of how much Naruto was despised in the village, being treated as the incarnation of the Nine Tails. They knew that being a Jinchuriki like Naruto meant being seen as a monster, and this wasn't unique to Konoha but was true across the entire shinobi world. Due to the Uchiha clan's sensitive position within the village, they had never paid much attention to Naruto, let alone suspected his true identity as the fourth Hokage's son. The revelation that Naruto was actually the child of the fourth Hokage came as a massive shock to them. The other sins that Akira had listed, like the downfall of Ozushiagakuer and the Senju clan, were major failures of the third Hokage's reign, but they were not entirely definitive. The suicides of White Fang and the forbidden experiments of Orochimaru lacked solid evidence. Even the Uchiha's exclusion from the Nine Tails incident, or the Hokage's softness toward the Cloud Village, weren't fatal flaws. However, the fact that Naruto, the village's hero's son, was deliberately kept in the dark and made to live as an outcast was an unforgivable sin. The fourth Hokage was held in high esteem within the village, and the widespread hatred of Naruto only intensified this betrayal. When the truth of Naruto's parentage was revealed, it would surely shake the entire village to its core. As the one who orchestrated all of this, the third Hokage's reputation wouldn't just be tarnished, it would be utterly destroyed. He wouldn't be seen as fit to be Hokage, or even to be considered a decent human being. Akira, are you certain about Naruto's identity? This isn't something to take lightly. One elder questioned, though the revelation clearly left him shaken. Now that you mention it, Naruto does have that same blonde hair as the fourth Hokage. Remember the night of the Nine Tails attack? That was the same night the fourth's child was born. The timing fits perfectly with Naruto's age. And the surname Uzumaki. To hide his identity, they must have given him his mother Kushina's surname. Exactly. The Uzumaki clan is known for their strong life force and are ideal for ceiling-tailed beasts. Over the years, Naruto has never had an issue with the Nine Tails running wild. Even though Uchiha Akira had a reputation for being trustworthy, the revelation was so shocking that the elders couldn't help but express some skepticism. However, as they analyzed the situation, the matching ages, physical resemblance, the use of the Uzumaki surname, and other factors, they began to realize that it all made sense. If this were true, it would be the biggest black mark on the third Hokage's record, a sin that could never be washed away. Just like how Uchiha Itachi's massacre of his clan could never be forgiven, this would be an indelible stain on the third Hokage's legacy. The meeting of the Uchiha leadership wrapped up shortly after this shocking revelation. They discussed the next steps, which included gathering solid evidence to back up these claims, especially regarding Naruto's true identity. Half a month passed, during which the entire shinobi world was thrown into turmoil. Konoha, the leading nation among the 5 great shinobi countries, had seen its most powerful clan, the Uchiha, launch a coup. The third Hokage and Danzo, with their elite forces of the Anbu and Root, had tried to wipe out the Uchiha but were instead killed by Uchiha Akira, a mere 7-year-old genius. This news sent shockwaves throughout the entire shinobi world. Konoha's third Hokage must have been out of his mind to target the Uchiha, the strongest clan in the village. Look at how it backfired. The Uchiha were one of the most formidable clans even during the Warring States period. Who would have thought that Uchiha Akira, a mere child, could kill the third Hokage and even Danzo? And he's only 7 years old. This is terrifying. In 10 years, the Uchiha clan might produce another Madara. In the Hidden Sand Village, the 4th Kazekage, Raza, mocked the third Hokage for his foolishness. But beneath his sarcasm was a deep sense of unease about the power that Uchiha Akira had displayed. That old monkey was killed by a 7-year-old? The Uchiha are still as fearsome as ever. Are we witnessing the rise of another Uchiha Madara? In the Hidden Stone Village, the 3rd Tsuchikage, Onaki, was both amazed and fearful of Uchiha Akira's strength. Memories of the past, when he had once seen a figure as fearsome as a god Madara Uchiha, began to surface. Uchiha Akira? Impossible. When he took part in the Chunin exams, he was skilled, but how could he have become strong enough to kill the third Hokage in just 6 months? If I had known his talent was this terrifying, we should have ended his life when he was in the Hidden Cloud Village. In the Hidden Cloud Village, the 4th Raikage was filled with regret upon hearing of the events in Konoha. The Uchiha's coup was certainly noteworthy, but Uchiha Akira's achievement of killing the third Hokage at such a young age was what truly shocked the world. From the moment of the Chunin exams, his genius had spread across the shinobi world. But to think he could reach such heights in just 6 months was truly alarming. The Raikage was now filled with regret, wishing he had eliminated Akira when he had the chance. Because of Uchiha Akira's achievements, everyone in the shinobi world was reminded of the legendary Uchiha Madara. Comparing the two, it was clear that Akira's future held the potential to rival even Madara's power. With memories of the distant past when Madara Uchiha and Hashirama Senju alone had suppressed the entire shinobi world, the prospect of Akira reaching such heights was terrifying. The First Shinobi World War had only erupted after the deaths of these 2 titans. As a result, the attention of all the other villages focused intently on Uchiha Akira, even more so than on Fugaku, the current head of the Uchiha clan. Meanwhile, several other villages were beginning to harbor strange thoughts in response to the Uchiha's coup. The upheaval in Konoha sent shockwaves through the shinobi world, and even the major villages of the Sand, Stone, and Cloud were beginning to stir in response. However, the Hidden Mist village seemed largely unaffected. At that time, the mist was engulfed in the dark period known as the Blood Mist, dealing with its own internal strife. With the Mizukage under the control of Uchiha Obito, the village was on the verge of collapse and had little attention to spare for Konoha's affairs. But as the other villages reacted to Konoha's coup, half a month had passed, and the official document of appointment from the Fire Country daimyo finally arrived in Konoha. With this document, Fugaku's succession as the 5th Hokage became even more legitimate and recognized. Although the daimyo lacked military power, he controlled much of the village's economy, making his endorsement crucial. As soon as the appointment document reached Konoha, the inauguration ceremony for the 5th Hokage was swiftly organized. However, unlike previous ceremonies, this one was notably subdued. Most of those attending were from the various ninja clans, with many of the civilian ninjas and villagers choosing not to participate. This response left the Uchiha clan visibly displeased. It was clear that the absence of many villagers and civilian ninjas was a silent protest against the Uchiha's coup and the killing of the third Hokage. However, this was something the Uchiha leadership had anticipated. That's why the third Hokage's will of fire was so effective. At least in terms of public sentiment, he managed to keep everything tightly under control. But once the 7 deadly sins are revealed, we'll be able to completely turn things around. As Fugaku donned the Hokage's hat, marking his official ascension to the position of 5th Hokage, Akira silently noted the cold atmosphere. After the inauguration ceremony, Fugaku, now officially the 5th Hokage, made a formal address. He reflected on Konoha's past glory and shared his vision for the future. Finally, Fugaku said, regarding the death of the third Hokage, today, as the 5th Hokage of Konoha, I intend to make a formal statement. These words sent shockwaves through the entire assembly. Note, if you are interested, You can read up to chapter 136 at patreon.com/mek01. Chapter 97, Naruto, your father is the fourth Hokage. Uchiha Fugaku's words sent shockwaves through the Hokage ceremony. The Uchiha had killed the third Hokage and seized control of Konoha, a move that wasn't exactly praiseworthy. Faced with the Uchiha's overwhelming power, no one dared to openly criticize this during the Hokage transition. For most, the best course of action was to pretend it never happened. Yet here was Fugaku, openly discussing the death of the third Hokage in front of everyone. What was he thinking? Was he really going to tear open old wounds for all to see? The ordinary shinobi and civilians present were baffled. Even the ninja clans looked at each other in confusion, unable to understand Fugaku's bold move. Scanning the crowd, Fugaku could see the surprise and confusion on their faces just as he had anticipated. As the fifth Hokage of Konoha, I stand here today to reveal the 7 deadly sins of the third Hokage, Fugaku announced. First, during his tenure, he was weak and incompetent, he began. When Hinata, the Hyuga princess, was kidnapped by the Cloud Village, it led to the sacrifice of Hayashi's twin brother, Hisashi, to appease the Cloud's unjust demands. As soon as he said this, many eyes turned to Hayashi Hyuga. The faces of the Hyuga clan members showed clear signs of anger and shame. Even though Hisashi was part of the branch family, he was still a Hyuga. The third Hokage's decision to sacrifice a member of the clan was indeed an act of weakness. With this sin revealed, the Hyuga felt their honor had been deeply tarnished. It wasn't just the Hyuga who were affected. Many of the Genin present also looked troubled. While the general public might not have known the full details, these higher-ranking shinobi were well aware of what had happened. It was a story that had been kept quiet to protect the third Hokage's image. When Fugaku finished listing the first sin and no one stepped forward to refute it, those who had been in the dark were left in disbelief. Wasn't the third Hokage always talking about the will of fire and how everyone in Konoha was family? Yet here was proof that he had sacrificed one of his own to placate an enemy, even when Konoha was in the right. For many, the shining image of the third Hokage began to crack. Second sin, Fugaku continued, is the downfall of Uzushiagakuer. The village of the Uzumaki clan, who were our close allies, was destroyed due to Konoha's delayed aid. In the end, Konoha gained a wealth of sealing techniques from Uzushiagakuer's demise. Third sin, during the third Hokage's rule, the Senjo clan, one of Konoha's founding families, was repeatedly sent into battle, leading to their near extinction. This is what drove Tsunade to leave the village. As these accusations were laid out, the faces of many shinobi grew darker. Uzushiagakuer's fall was one thing, but the near extinction of the Senjo clan, one of Konoha's most prestigious families? That was harder to justify. The thought of how such a powerful clan had been allowed to wither away was indeed terrifying. Fourth sin, Fugaku's voice rang out, Orochimaru, in collaboration with Danzo, conducted forbidden experiments using villagers and even shinobi as test subjects. Despite knowing this, the third Hokage allowed Orochimaru to escape, putting personal feelings above the safety of the village. Boom! This revelation was like a thunderclap, shocking everyone present. The real reason Orochimaru defected from Konoha was because of this? And the third Hokage had let him go on purpose? It was as if the lives of the villagers meant nothing to him. And yet, this was the man who preached the will of fire? With these sins brought to light, the once glorified image of the third Hokage began to shatter in the minds of many. Fifth sin, Fugaku continued, he was jealous of those with talent and drove the White Fang of Konoha to his death. Fugaku then elaborated on how the third Hokage and Danzo manipulated public opinion, driving Sakumo Hotaki to the point of suicide. With the deaths of the fourth Hokage and White Fang, and the departure of the Sunin, the older generation of Konoha's leadership faced no threats to their power. As Fugaku spoke, many shinobi and civilians silently nodded. Indeed, Konoha had seen a sharp decline in top-tier combat power in recent years, with a noticeable gap in leadership. My father's death was because of this. Kakashi Hotaki, hearing the truth about his father's suicide and the role the third Hokage played, lowered his gaze. Reflecting on those events, Kakashi realized that Fugaku's words were likely true. Kakashi had always respected the third Hokage, who had been the teacher of his own sensei, the fourth Hokage. But learning that his father had been driven to suicide due to the ambitions of the village's leaders left Kakashi feeling utterly betrayed. Sixth sin, Fugaku declared, on the night of the Nine Tails attack, the Uchiha could have subdued the beast with the power of the Manjiki Sharingan. But the village leaders, fearing the Uchiha's rising influence, forbade us from participating, leading to countless deaths. Mentioning the Nine Tails attack, which had occurred only 7 years ago, brought back vivid memories for many. The absence of the Uchiha during that night's battle, due to the machinations of the third Hokage and his advisors, left a sour taste in everyone's mouth. With these sins listed, the image of the third Hokage crumbled completely. The man who had preached the will of fire now appeared as nothing more than a selfish, weak leader who had sacrificed others for his own gain. Just then, a voice rang out, "That's impossible!" Someone in the crowd shouted, cutting through the tension. Everyone turned to see a young man, about 20 years old, a teacher at the Ninja Academy. "I'm Irika Umino, just a chunin and a teacher at the academy," the man declared. "I don't believe what you're saying. Sure, the Uchiha took over Konoha's leadership, but to slander the third Hokage's name like this after killing him? I can't believe it." Irika's voice rang out strong and clear, defying the Uchiha with a bravery that belied his rank. For Irika, the third Hokage had been a guiding light during his youth, a figure who had personally reached out to him during his darkest times. To Irika, the third Hokage had been the perfect leader, and hearing Fugaku's accusations was something he could not stand. "Sensei Irika is right. The third Hokage was a good man." Another voice chimed in this time. It was a loud, determined shout. The owner of that voice was none other than Naruto Uzumaki, with his unmistakable blonde hair. For Naruto, the third Hokage had always been a paternal figure, and Irika was one of the few people who had ever shown him kindness. So naturally, Naruto stepped forward to defend the man he admired most. Yet, the third Hokage was always a great leader. The Uchiha took power and now they're trying to smear the third Hokage's name. We don't believe it. Don't you dare defame the third Hokage. The Uchiha have no right to claim the title of fifth Hokage. Sometimes, all it takes is one voice to lead the charge. With Irika and Naruto standing up first, others who still believed in the third Hokage joined in, their voices rising in protest. Pfft! Watching the scene unfold, Uchiha Akira couldn't help but chuckle. To be honest, Akira had anticipated this kind of reaction. After all, the third Hokage had spent years building up his image. It was only natural that Fugaku's attempt to list the Hokage's sins would provoke such a backlash. But what Akira hadn't expected was that the first ones to stand up would be Irika and Naruto. "What are you laughing at?" Naruto snapped, glaring at Akira with a fierce determination that belied his small stature. "I remember you. You're Uchiha Akira. You graduated from the academy right after you enrolled last year. I heard you're the one who killed Grandpa Third. I, Uzumaki Naruto, will defeat you someday. And I'll become Hokage, believe it. Why do I suddenly feel like I'm the villain in some epic tale?" Akira thought to himself, amused by Naruto's intense declaration. It was a strange feeling indeed. "Naruto, why don't you try beating me first?" It was Sasuke Uchiha who spoke up, stepping forward to back up Akira. Though they were classmates, Sasuke was clearly siding with his fellow Uchiha. "Good to know Sasuke's still on my side," Akira thought, nodding slightly as Sasuke stood up for him. But this was hardly the time or place for children to bicker. Akira decided to speak up, turning to Naruto with a serious expression. "Naruto, do you even know where your name comes from?" Akira asked, his tone more serious now. "Hey? My name?" Naruto replied, caught off guard by the sudden question. "Do you know who your parents were?" Akira continued, his voice growing sharper, drawing the attention of everyone around. "My parents?" Naruto muttered, suddenly feeling a strange weight in his chest. This was a question that had haunted him for as long as he could remember. "And do you know who spread the rumors that you were the Nine Tails reincarnation, causing everyone to treat you like a monster?" Akira asked, his words cutting through the air like a knife. "Who? Who was it?" Naruto's voice wavered, filled with a mix of fear and curiosity. "Your name was given to you by one of the legendary Sunin, Jiraiya," Akira began, his eyes locked onto Naruto's. "Your parents were none other than the fourth Hokage, Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki." Naruto's eyes widened in shock, his heart pounding as if it might burst out of his chest. "And as for who spread the rumors that you were the Nine Tails reincarnated," Akira said, his voice cold, "it was none other than the third Hokage and the rest of Konoha's leadership. Note, if you are interested, you can read up to chapter 136 at patreon.com/mek01. Chapter 98, Naruto in Tears, my father is the fourth Hokage. My father, is the fourth Hokage. Naruto Uzumaki stood there, stunned, as Uchiha Akira's words echoed in his mind. If Naruto had to name his greatest hero, it would undoubtedly be the fourth Hokage. Ever since his first appearance in the original story, Naruto had always admired the Hokage, especially the fourth Hokage, who had defeated the Nine Tails. Naruto had always seen him as a role model, someone he wanted to emulate. But now, someone was telling him that the fourth Hokage was actually his father? Naruto's mind went blank. No way. Isn't Naruto the Nine Tails? How can he be the son of the fourth Hokage? It wasn't just Naruto who was shocked. Everyone at the Hokage inauguration ceremony was looking around at each other, their faces full of disbelief. Naruto had always been known as the Nine Tails, and the entire village treated him with fear and hatred. But now, they were being told that Naruto was actually the son of the hero who had defeated the Nine Tails, the fourth Hokage? What did that mean for all the villagers who had treated Naruto so badly over the years? Uchiha Akira, are you lying to me? Is my father really the fourth Hokage? Naruto, despite his usual brashness, could only stammer out his question after a long moment of stunned silence, trying to confirm what he had just heard. The fourth Hokage's name was Minato Namikaze, Akira explained. Your mother's name was Kushina Uzumaki. To keep your identity a secret, the third Hokage had you take your mother's surname. By all rights, your name should have been Naruto Namikaze. Akira pointed to Naruto's golden hair. That blonde hair of yours is a rare trait. There aren't many in the ninja world with that color. Furthermore, when the fourth Hokage sealed the Nine Tails within you, he turned you into a hero by making your body the container for the beast. If you don't believe me, you can enter your own mindscape and see for yourself. There should still be traces of your parents' chakra there, Akira added. With that, Akira used a Shunshin no Jutsu, body flicker technique, to appear directly in front of Naruto. He then extended his hand and touched Naruto's forehead. The three tomo of Akira's Sharingan spun rapidly, and in an instant, his mental energy connected with Naruto's, pulling them both into Naruto's sealed mindscape. Just like in the original story, a massive iron gate appeared, with a shallow pool of water at their feet. Behind the gate, the fiery red form of the Nine Tails lay in wait, sealed by a large tag on the gate. Ha, after all these years, someone's finally come to visit. The Nine Tails' eyes snapped open, its vertical pupils locking onto Naruto and Akira. The beast's tone turned sour as it noticed Akira's Sharingan. I hate those eyes of yours. They remind me of someone I despise. This is the Nine Tails? The one sealed inside me. Naruto gasped, his face full of astonishment as he saw the massive fox for the first time. He wasn't the Nine Tails himself. Instead, the beast had been sealed within him all along. Was Akira telling the truth? Try removing the seal, Akira instructed calmly. The Nine Tails had a deep-seated hatred for humans, especially the Uchiha. Akira had no intention of wasting time trying to negotiate with it. What? You want me to remove the seal? Naruto hesitated. The stories about the Nine Tails and its destructive power were legendary. If he released the beast, the consequences could be disastrous. But Akira seemed certain. Don't worry. If you remove the seal, you'll be able to see your father. Ordinarily, anyone else would have doubted Akira's words, suspecting a trick to unleash the Nine Tails. But Naruto's thought process was different, and Akira was betting on that. Sure enough, Naruto didn't hesitate. He nodded and flew up to the large tag on the gate, reaching out to remove it. The Nine Tails watched with curiosity, wondering what these two were up to. Was Naruto really going to undo the seal? As Naruto's hand reached for the tag, a strange chakra suddenly flared to life. In an instant, Naruto vanished from the mindscape. Looks like father and son have finally met, Akira thought, satisfied. He had no reason to linger any longer and withdrew his mental energy from Naruto's mindscape. Back in the real world, Akira withdrew his hand from Naruto's forehead. How is he? Irika, who had been watching anxiously, asked Akira with a concerned expression. Don't worry. He'll wake up soon, Akira assured him. Although Irika had been the first to question Akira's accusations against the third Hokage, Akira knew that Irika had simply been misled by the old man's facade. Akira didn't hold any ill will towards him. At that moment, everyone's attention was focused on Naruto. Was he really the fourth Hokage's son? Initially, most people were skeptical. But as they considered the possibility, especially noting Naruto's distinctive blonde hair and his status as a Jinchuriki, more and more began to believe it might be true. "Hey, Shikaku, I heard your son is good friends with Naruto in class," Chisa Akimichi said, nudging his friend. "Yeah, that kid does his own thing. If he wants to play with Naruto, I see no reason to stop him," Shikaku Nara replied with a nod. "So, what do you think? Is there any truth to this claim that Naruto is the fourth Hokage's son?" Chisa asked, turning to Shikaku for his opinion. In matters of strategy and wisdom, Shikaku was second to none in the village, and Chisa trusted his judgment implicitly. Shikaku considered the question for a moment before answering. "I'd say there's a 90% chance it's true." Though Naruto's identity had been kept under tight wraps, Shikaku's keen mind had pieced together the clues over the years. He had suspected Naruto's true heritage for some time, but since the third Hokage had kept it secret, Shikaku saw no reason to reveal it. It was for this reason that he hadn't stopped his son, Shikamaru, from befriending Naruto. In the original story, Shikamaru, Hinata, and Sasuke were some of the few who didn't shun Naruto. Hearing Shikaku's words, Chise and Inoichi Yamanaka exchanged surprised looks. If Shikaku believed it, then it must be true. So Uchiha Akira was right? But if Naruto really was the fourth Hokage's son, why had he been treated like a demon all these years? Why had he been shunned and despised by the villagers? Naruto's life in the village was no secret. Everyone knew how he had lived, often struggling to find food and shelter. It was no exaggeration to say he had lived a life of near starvation. The Inoshika-CH trio had been some of the fourth Hokage's most trusted allies. Now, knowing Naruto's true identity, even they began to harbor resentment towards the third Hokage. Most actions could be forgiven, considering the pressures of leadership. But what had Naruto done to deserve this treatment? He was just a child. Why had the third Hokage treated him this way? Was it simply to give the villagers someone to blame for their grief after the Nine Tails attack? Of all the sins Akira had listed, Naruto's hidden heritage was the one that could never be forgiven. In that moment, the third Hokage's reputation was completely overturned. With his moral integrity in question, there was no need to doubt the other sins Akira had mentioned. A person with such deep flaws in their character would never make a good Hokage. The mood began to shift. About 10 minutes later, Naruto, who had been standing with his eyes closed, finally opened them. The first thing he did was look up at the Hokage rock, his gaze locking onto the face of the fourth Hokage. "So, my father really is the fourth Hokage," Naruto murmured as tears began to stream down his cheeks. Note, if you are interested, you can read up to chapter 136 at patreon.com/mek01. Chapter 99, The Third Hokage's Reputation Crumbles, Appointing the Head of the Anbu. A child, just 7 years old, growing up under the cold stares of others, with barely enough money to survive. But the most significant issue? Even if Naruto Uzumaki had money, no one was willing to sell him food. When he was younger, Naruto often starved to the point where he would go into the wild to gather mushrooms and cook them himself. Even after graduating from the Ninja Academy, he often had to drink milk that had long expired. And birthdays? No one ever celebrated with him, lonely and cold. Maybe things got a bit better after he learned the Shadow Clone Jutsu. Why? Because when no one else was there to celebrate with him, Naruto could at least create a couple of shadow clones to play cards with him and pretend he wasn't alone on his birthday. So, in the world of Naruto, while everyone has their own struggles, Naruto Uzumaki's life was undoubtedly the hardest. Some have even said that if anyone in the series deserved to turn evil, it was Naruto. Yet, despite all his hardships, Naruto didn't become bitter. Instead, he remained optimistic, kind-hearted, and hopeful. It's almost as if someone had used a genjutsu on him from a young age to make him that way. This resilience in the face of such adversity makes Naruto's character even more remarkable. Now, with Uchiha Akira's help, Naruto had seen his father in his own mindscape, confirming that his father was indeed the fourth Hokage. This realization moved Naruto deeply. He wasn't a monster, he wasn't the Nine Tails. He had a father, and his father was the fourth Hokage. "Naruto!" Iruka called out as he noticed Naruto's tear-streaked face. "Iruka-sensei, I really saw my father inside me. He's truly the fourth Hokage, and I also saw the Nine Tails sealed within me," Naruto said, turning to Iruka with a beaming smile despite the tears still streaming down his face. Seeing Naruto's tearful yet radiant smile, Iruka couldn't help but feel happy for him, but at the same time, a heavy weight settled in his chest. This was just a 7-year-old child. The third Hokage, he actually. Hearing from Naruto that his father was indeed the fourth Hokage, Iruka's mind flashed back to the kindly face of the third Hokage. But now, that image made him feel sick. No matter how much the third Hokage talked about the will of fire and how the people of the village were like family. The true measure of a person's character isn't in what they say, but in what they do. And in Naruto's case, no matter how you looked at it, the third Hokage's actions were inexcusable. Naruto Uzumaki really is the son of the fourth Hokage. How is that possible? I can't believe it. But look at that golden hair, it's exactly like the fourth Hokage's. Yet, besides Naruto, can you name any other child in the village with hair like that? Back then, the fourth Hokage's wife was indeed pregnant, but no one ever said whether the child survived or died during the Nine Tails attack. If Naruto is really the fourth Hokage's child, then how have we treated him all these years? Why? Why did the third Hokage, knowing Naruto's circumstances and that he was the fourth Hokage's son, not come forward to clear this up? As Naruto returned to reality from his mindscape, the surrounding ninjas and villagers began to murmur among themselves. Originally, no one believed in Naruto's true heritage. But now, as the truth spread, the tide of opinion shifted, and most people started to accept that Naruto was indeed the fourth Hokage's son. And this revelation became the third Hokage's most damning secret. At that moment, the carefully maintained, righteous image of the third Hokage, built over decades, came crashing down. In contrast, the Uchiha, who had previously been seen as usurpers after staging a coup and seizing control of the village, now began to be viewed in a different light as liberators who had slain the evil dragon. Before, all the Anbu forces launched a night raid on the Uchiha clan. It seems the Uchiha's coup was really just an act of self-defense. With the Senju clan already gone, if the Uchiha hadn't fought back, wouldn't they have ended up like the Senju? After the massacre, when Uchiha Akira returned to the clan's territory, many ninjas, including Kakashi and Might Guy, followed him there. Now that they thought about it, the battle took place in the Uchiha district. And with the Senju already extinct, many ninjas began to believe that the third Hokage had planned to attack the Uchiha, forcing them to retaliate and kill the third Hokage in self-defense. As soon as one ninja voiced this opinion, others quickly followed. In no time, this perspective started spreading among the ninja community of Konoha. Uchiha Fugaku, now wearing the Hokage's hat, looked at the changing sentiment during the ceremony and silently nodded to himself. At the same time, his eyes scanned over Uchiha Akira, and he couldn't help but marvel. This child is only 7 years old, and yet he has such a profound understanding of human nature? Listing the third Hokage's 7 deadly sins was indeed a brilliant move. The third Hokage's image had completely crumbled, and the Uchiha had transformed from power-hungry rebels into victims forced to act in self-defense to ensure their survival. Though, to be fair, that was the truth of the matter. But still, the Uchiha had been under pressure for so many years. When had they ever had the chance to hold their heads high like this? Impressive, murmured Shikaku Nara, observing the shift in Konoha's public opinion. He nodded to himself. The Uchiha's move to list the third Hokage's 7 sins during the Hokage inauguration was a masterstroke, a true finishing touch. It immediately flipped the Uchiha's image in the eyes of the public. Furthermore, each of the 7 sins addressed different groups. Hinata's kidnapping endeared them to the Hyuga clan, the Senju clan's demise resonated with Tsunade and Jiraiya, and the injustice done to White Fang gave Kakashi closure. Especially the revelation about Naruto, one final, decisive blow. The fourth Hokage, who had sacrificed himself to seal the 9 tails, was a revered hero in Konoha. His legacy was held in the highest regard. Now, with this scandal coming to light, it stirred up widespread anger among the villagers and lower-ranked ninjas against the third Hokage. And so, the inauguration of the 5th Hokage ended on a triumphant note. Though the ceremony itself might have seemed subdued, the events that took place would spread through Konoha like a hurricane. Within a short time, the news that Naruto Uzumaki was the 4th Hokage's son spread throughout the village. The 3rd Hokage, who had once been seen as a symbol of righteousness, was now the target of widespread scorn. Many people quietly mocked the 3rd Hokage, saying that he had tried to force the Uchiha into the same fate as the Senju, only to lose his own life in the process. As for the shifting opinions of the villagers, Uchiha Akira was vaguely aware of it, but he didn't dwell on it. After all, now wasn't the time to focus on such matters. The night of the massacre had passed, and the Uchiha had ascended to the position of Hokage, a cause for celebration, to be sure. But this was only the beginning, not the end. At this moment, Uchiha Akira arrived at the Hokage's office. Fugaku sat there, looking solemn, with piles of documents stacked up beside him. The sight of so much paperwork made Akira's scalp tingle. Being the Hokage was indeed a prestigious position, but it certainly wasn't an easy job. Thinking of the original series, where Naruto struggled to keep up with his duties as the 7th Hokage, even with countless shadow clones, Akira couldn't help but shudder. "Akira, there are 2 things I need to discuss with you," Fugaku said, snapping Akira out of his thoughts as he entered the office. "Hokage-sama, please go ahead," Akira responded, pulling his attention back to the matter at hand. "The first is that, as of today, I am officially appointing you as the head of the Anbu. Here is your appointment letter," Fugaku said, sliding a document across the desk. "Are you sure, clan leader? Isn't there any way to reconsider? I was kind of hoping for the role of finance minister," Akira sighed, realizing this might be his last chance to negotiate. The fact that Akira switched from addressing him as Hokage to clan leader showed they were now speaking in a more private capacity. But Fugaku's expression remained steady, showing no sign of relenting. It seemed this negotiation was a lost cause. Akira sighed in resignation and stepped forward to accept the appointment letter. Naruto may have gone from a genin to Hokage in one of the fastest promotions in history, but Akira wasn't doing too bad himself. He had just jumped from chunin to Anbu commander. And besides, how old was Naruto when he became Hokage? At the age of 7, Uchiha Akira was already becoming the head of the Anbu? This would definitely be a record in Konoha's history. The second thing, Fugaku continued after Akira accepted the appointment letter, due to the recent coup in Konoha, there have been reports of ninja movements near the borders of the Land of Fire, from the Sand, Stone and Cloud villages. So, I need you to select some personnel and conduct a patrol at the borders to demonstrate Konoha's strength." "What? You want me to go?" Akira asked, surprised by Fugaku's request. "Akira, right now, the village's high-level combat power is rather lacking," Fugaku said with a heavy sigh. "Think about it, both the 3rd Hokage and Danzo are dead. As it stands, in terms of visible cage-level strength, Konoha only has you and me." Realizing the dire situation, Akira nodded in understanding. "So, this task really does fall to me, doesn't it?" And so, Akira understood that with Konoha's current state, there wasn't much choice. If he didn't take on this mission, there wouldn't be anyone else capable of doing so. Note, if you are interested, you can read up to chapter 136 at patreon.com/mek01. Chapter 100, Jiraiya returns to Konoha, Naruto's mixed emotions. On a street in a town somewhere in the Land of Fire, a tall, imposing man with long white hair tied back in a simple ponytail walked along. Perhaps it was his long hair that suited his image as a writer or an artist. On his feet were wooden sandals, and on his forehead, he wore a headband. However, instead of bearing the symbol of any ninja village, it simply had the large character "for oil" written on it. 2 red lines extended from the corners of his eyes, resembling streaks of tears painted on his face. Anyone from Konoha who saw this figure would immediately recognize him: Jiraiya, one of the legendary Sunin of Konoha. "Ha ha ha," Jiraiya chuckled to himself. "That hot spring I just visited, wow, they even have that kind of design. This material will be perfect for my next book," he added, though he shook his head. "But it's not enough. I need to gather more material." His eyes glinted with a mischievous, almost lecherous, gleam as he waved his hands in the air, seemingly reliving some delightful memory, with drool nearly dripping from his mouth. "Hey, did you hear? There was a huge upheaval in Konoha," someone nearby said, catching Jiraiya's attention. "An upheaval? What happened?" "A natural disaster," the other person replied. "Not a natural disaster, you fool. The Uchiha clan staged a coup. The 3rd Hokage is dead. I heard the Uchiha took over and installed the 5th Hokage just a few days ago." Jiraiya's face shifted slightly upon hearing this. He moved closer to the 2 people talking and asked them for more details. From their conversation, Jiraiya confirmed the rumors: the 3rd Hokage was dead, and the Uchiha clan had seized power. So, the Uchiha staged a coup? Or, was the old man pushing them to the point where they had no choice? Jiraiya's expression grew darker. As a student of the 3rd Hokage, one of the legendary Sunin, and the mentor of the 4th Hokage, why had Jiraiya left Konoha to wander the world? The truth was, Jiraiya knew the third Hokage's true nature, which had left him deeply disappointed. In the end, he chose to distance himself from the village rather than face the harsh reality. Therefore, upon hearing about the Uchiha coup, Jiraiya didn't immediately blame the Uchiha. After all, he knew how things had turned out for the Senju clan. He also remembered how Tsunade's younger brother, a Senju heir and one of Orochimaru's disciples, had mysteriously died on a mission with Orochimaru. Even back then, Jiraiya had sensed something was off, not to mention the complete decline of the Senju clan afterward. It seems that the Uchiha clan is truly a force to be reckoned with. Without the Senju to keep them in check, it's not surprising that the Hokage position would eventually fall into the Uchiha's hands, one of the men continued as Jiraiya listened. You're wrong about that. The Uchiha didn't stage the coup just to seize the Hokage title. It's because the third Hokage was unfit for the role. The other man argued. What? Unfit? Isn't the third Hokage known as the strongest Hokage, a professor of ninja arts, and a very compassionate leader? The first man replied, shocked. You've been deceived, just like the rest of Konoha. The other man exclaimed. At the Hokage inauguration ceremony, the Uchiha listed the third Hokage's 7 deadly sins. One of the most shocking revelations was about the fourth Hokage's son, Naruto Uzumaki. Despite being a hero who served as the vessel for sealing the Nine Tails, the third Hokage treated him as an orphan and spread the rumor that he was the Nine Tails incarnate. Because of this, Naruto was shunned and mistreated by the entire village for years. What? The fourth Hokage's son, Naruto Uzumaki, ended up like that? That's unforgivable. Jiraiya's brow furrowed even more upon hearing this. Naruto? Of course, Jiraiya knew that name well. The protagonist of his book, The Tale of the Utterly Gutsy Shinobi, was named Naruto. Minato had even named his son after that character. But instead of being named Naruto Namikaze, the boy was known as Naruto Uzumaki? And to be called the Nine Tails? To have suffered so much in Konoha? Even Jiraiya found it hard to accept this news. The old man, he went too far this time, Jiraiya thought grimly. It seems after all these years of wandering, it's time for me to return to the village, Jiraiya muttered to himself. Despite everything, he felt a duty to pay his respects to his deceased teacher. Moreover, knowing that the fourth Hokage's son, Naruto, had suffered so much, Jiraiya realized that it was time to return to Konoha. As a lone wanderer, Jiraiya didn't have much to pack. However, he did regret that he wouldn't be able to gather more material for his books tonight. Sigh, he thought with a hint of disappointment before setting off for Konoha. The Uchiha are in charge now? I wonder what Konoha will look like under Uchiha rule, Jiraiya mused as he made his way back to the village. Meanwhile, back in Konoha, Uchiha Akira was already organizing a team. The Sand Village, the Cloud Village, and the Stone Village were all making moves, likely planning to attack Konoha. Akira understood their reasoning. Due to the previous leadership under the third Hokage, Konoha's talent pool had been severely depleted. Otherwise, the Cloud Village would never have dared to act so brazenly. Now, after the coup, with both the third Hokage and Danzo dead, Konoha's situation was even more dire. This was undoubtedly the weakest Konoha had been in terms of high-level combat power since its founding. From another perspective, Akira could understand why these villages would see Konoha as an easy target. Currently, Konoha only had 2 cage-level fighters, himself and Fugaku. Thus, the task of deterring the other villages fell to Akira. After assigning this challenging mission to Akira, Fugaku granted him full authority to mobilize Konoha's forces as he saw fit. Akira first sought out Kakashi and Might Guy, both of whom were elite jonin. In particular, Guy could open 7 of the 8 gates, temporarily reaching cage-level strength, so Akira naturally brought him along. He then sought a jonin from the Hyuga clan to accompany them. The Byakugan's abilities would be invaluable, especially in medical ninjutsu, where its X-ray vision could provide immense benefits. Hyuga Hayashi, the head of the Hyuga clan, graciously volunteered to join the mission, stating that as the clan leader, it was only right for him to face the potential threat from the Cloud Village. Next, Akira approached the Inoshikacho trio. The leaders of these 3 clans also agreed to join the mission for the sake of Konoha. With this, Akira assembled Konoha's top 6 fighters, 4 of whom were clan leaders. This was as close to an elite team as Konoha could muster at the moment. Additionally, Akira gathered 2,000 more ninja jonin, chunin, and genin from various clans and the general populace, ready to deploy to the battlefield if necessary. If the elite team could successfully deter the other villages, that would be ideal. But if war broke out, a small group would not be enough. After meeting with Shikaku Nara and finalizing plans to depart the next morning, Akira left the Nara clan's residence. Seeing that it was already late, he decided to return to the Uchiha district. However, as he walked down the street, Akira suddenly paused. A familiar figure had caught his eye. "Naruto, where are you heading so late?" "Training? You must be working hard to be training this late." "Naruto, are you hungry? How about I make you a bowl of ramen?" "Naruto, your clothes are all dirty. Bring them by tomorrow, and I'll wash them for you." As Naruto walked through Konoha, people greeted him warmly, each one offering some gesture of kindness. Naruto felt both happiness and pain from the attention. On one hand, he was overjoyed that his lifelong dream of being accepted by the village had finally come true. But on the other hand, the villagers were so overwhelmingly friendly that it was exhausting. Naruto smiled and greeted everyone who spoke to him, but he could feel his face starting to cramp from all the smiling. Ever since Naruto's true identity was revealed, the entire village had learned that he was the son of the fourth Hokage. Reflecting on how they had treated Naruto over the years, the villagers felt a deep sense of guilt towards him, while silently cursing the third Hokage and the other village leaders. Because of this, the village's attitude toward Naruto had done a complete 180. Where once they had been cold and distant, now they were warm and welcoming, almost to an overwhelming degree. Watching Naruto walk through the village, greeted warmly by everyone he passed, Akira couldn't help but smile. To be honest, Akira had always felt sad about Naruto's tragic childhood in the original story. Now, knowing that he had changed Naruto's fate, Akira couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment. After watching for a moment, Akira stepped forward to greet Naruto. "Naruto, what a coincidence!" Akira called out. "Uchiha Akira, what a coincidence! Thank you for helping me learn who my father is and for making it so that everyone in the village acknowledges me." Naruto replied with a smile. He was genuinely grateful to Akira. If it hadn't been for Akira, Naruto would have continued to be deceived by the third Hokage, believing him to be a good person. "So, have you had dinner yet? It's late, but I'm sure Ichiraku Ramen is still open. How about I treat you?" Akira offered. "Sure." Naruto nodded enthusiastically at Akira's invitation. And so, the two 7-year-old boys headed off in the direction of Ichiraku Ramen.
Thanks for listening.